What is up, everyone? I almost knocked. I just knocked something over. Welcome to another edition of AOS Trash Pandas. I'm your host, Rob. Out of breath as usual. Man, today is busy. How's it going, Carson?
It's going really good. I just celebrated my 10th anniversary with my partner on
What?
lovely Salt Spring Island, which is an island off of an island. If you know anything about British Columbia,
That's true.
what's up?
What's your what's? Oh, actually, maybe you don't want to say your actual anniversary date.
It's yesterday. Yeah.
It was yesterday. That's
Yeah.
crazy. My parents' anniversary was today, and my wife and my anniversary is later this month. It's on the 22nd.
Something about March is new couples getting together, or long-term couples getting together. But yeah, that it kind of segues into like a little shout out that I want to do where we visited a little board game shop on Salt Spring Island. And if you don't know anything about it, it's like maybe 10,000 people. It's tiny. Like
I don't think there's that many people. I used to live in Courtenay, which is like where you take the ferry from to go to Salt Spring. It's so small.
Yeah, it's very small. But it gets like an extra 20, 30,000 people in the summer because of tourism.
Right.
So it gets nuts.
It like doubles or triples in size.
yeah, exactly. Anyway, we checked out this little board game shop, and turns out there's actually a little bustling Warhammer community on Salt Spring Island. And I just wanted to give a little shout out to Fox's Board Games in Ganges on Salt Spring.
Awesome.
The owner was super nice. We bought a board game, and he played it with us in the store. And yeah, it was just a really nice time. So shout out to them. Fox's Board Games in Ganges.
Now, I believe, I could be wrong, but is Salt Spring the one with the little nudist colony?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Like there's like a nude beach or something, and like they've got like a little I shouldn't have said colony. It's not a colony, but I think they have a nude beach on Salt Spring Island. Anyway, I wanted to ask that joke, or I wanted to ask that to make a joke about playing board games and Warhammer naked, but we may never know.
Yeah.
Welcome everyone. This week we've got not a special episode. It's really starting off just really strong here tonight, but like we're going to be doing some predictions about the Battlescroll, maybe going through saying what we want to see and what we think we'll see perhaps. Carson is currently working 2 jobs. I'm working and I had to take my son to the emergency dentist appointment today because he had to get his first filling. And so, yeah, just run around like crazy. Before I forget, though, before we get into anything at all, the 6th episode of Heretic Hunt came out today. Our good friend Dan's, what do you call it? Like 40K D&D RPG that he made with Peachy, Greg, the voice actor who's insane, Louise, and Jamila. It just keeps getting better and better. Please watch it. Do yourselves a favor. I don't know if it's connected. I don't think it's connected on here, but you can find it. Heretic Hunt. Oh, it's so good on Odd Void. Anyway, did you get a chance to see the Rumor Engine?
I did. It's pretty interesting. It's like a rope bridge or something, or
right?
Yeah, it looks like the side of a rope bridge, like the railing thing that you'd kind of hold on to.
Totally.
So, terrain piece, I guess. I don't know. What do you think?
That's what I'm hoping. So, the rumor is in 40K that they're gonna get. Now, I've seen the pictures that they were showing, and like most of it just looks like old Forge World Tyranid terrain. But there's like 1 or 2 pieces that look like they're new. So the rumor is that they're going to get Tyranid 40K terrain, and Tyranids are the big bads of this edition in 40K. And because Skaven are the big bad of Age of Sigmar, and I think it was one of my predictions was Skaven themed terrain for the rest of the year, I'm really hoping that that's what this is. And like I've seen numerous people build Skaven terrain from scratch, and it always looks amazing. I tried to do it myself, and it looked like a bunch of giant penises. It was a whole big thing, but like it's such an easy slam dunk that everyone would love. Like anyone who's played Vermintide or any of these things, seen some of the dioramas and whatnot that people have made. Man, what an easy freaking slam dunk it would be. I hope it's Skaven terrain. That's what I really hope. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be really cool. Any terrain that's not just like ruins and like wreckage and stuff like that, if they start theming it a little more, would be really cool.
Yeah, they kind of did that. Like they had like sort of stormcasty, whatever ruins, Azurite ruins they called them, and different things like that. They had crumbling ruins. They had more wall ruins, and then in Dominion they kind of were like ruins that they're like being built and whatnot, and they kind of did that. But like you compare that to like the meat trees from Warcry, and like the meat trees are so much more interesting and dynamic. Thanks to Sean Blake for painting them for us. Man, those trees though, like they're all a bunch of like hooks. They're like thin hooks. They're like praying mantis arms everywhere, and so like they're just constantly getting stuck on you and whatnot. But yeah,
Absolutely terrifying.
it
I
is.
like that Beefy said in the chat, Nets, Deepkin, too clean for Skaven. Now I'm just imagining that this is like a Idoneth Deepkin endless spell, where it's literally just like a net catching fish. Board clearer, baby.
And you're just like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like a bunch of piranha get stuck in the net with you, and I mean that sounds terrifying. This does look like a rope bridge to me. So anything Deepkin, I'm down for, but I don't think that's what this is. The Deepkin stuff is usually a lot more symmetrical and elven looking, and I think this looks kind of gnarly.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
The one thing I will say is if you look at this image, I'm kind of just noticing this now. And if everyone else noticed, then I'll shut up. But if you look from the right side to the left, you'll see that it's actually turning towards you. The bridges, because it's kind of scrunching up a little bit, right? If you look on the left side of it, the holes are the same, but they get narrower and narrower. And the coils on the rope get smaller and smaller too, which indicates that it's like curving inwards at you.
Right.
Which is kind of a weird thing for a rope bridge to do. Like normally it's just straight across.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Huh. Yeah, maybe you're right. I actually just thought it was... I actually think it's really quite small too, because like, look how like obvious those lines are. Like, I think it's really quite small. But I was just thinking like that the right side is more where like the bridge is starting. Yeah, I don't know. Oh man, I really like, this is one of those ones where I really want to know the final answer. So if we get if we get shown what the model is, like someone tell me, please. Just let me know. A fish basket for atop a great mount. It looks too big for that. This is such an interesting one though. At least it's different. Yeah, I feel like they don't show us a lot of terrain. That's kind of a good point. You know, we tend to get like models. So like maybe it's like a new giant. Something that's like on his back, or I don't know. Or maybe, yeah, maybe it's part of like a howdah of some kind. But I don't think it's like a Deepkin kind of themed one. It looks too like dirty and like crappy to be Deepkin. Like the Deepkin howdah on the turtle is made out of like pearl or coral or something, right? What up, Jason? What up, Keith? What up, Beefy? What up, Kenrick? What up, all? Age of Canucks and Sean. Hey, what up, Sean? And Tom. I saw you guys commenting on those dice. I do have pictures to show. I'm going to put it in the background, but figured because we don't really have anything else to show. Like I was like trying to find some kind of cool image for the Battlescroll, like just put something up on the thumbnail, and it was very hard. Yeah. I mean, I guess we can kind of get into it. Actually, first, before we do, I suppose I will put up those pictures. So I got some new dice delivered recently. I just put up the Skaven ones, and so there's new Toad dice, and like the old Toad dice looked awesome. They sold really well and everything, but they had a pearl in them. And the new ones are ultra matte, like the Skaven ones, and they are, as Carson will attest to, everyone who's ever held them or looked at them, they are crazy easy to read, like the most easy to read dice that have ever existed. And so these ones are those the new Skaven dice are more green than the old ones. And then we've also got some synthwave orc dice that came in. Everything is ultra matte and super good. Yeah. Battlescroll in 8 days. That's true. That's true.
At least we're 99% sure. Just based on the 40K ones this week, and
Yeah.
it usually is 1 week afterwards is the AOS one. So yeah.
Exactly. And it fits in perfectly with the timeline thus far. So makes total sense. It's usually around like the changing of the season, actually, is when they seem to come out, around the 21st, 22nd of the month. And it's always, like spring equinox and summer solstice and winter solstice. It seems like. Oh, wait, is that true? Yeah, right? 1, 2, 3. Yeah.
Now it is, but previously they're really inconsistent.
That's true.
With releasing
absolutely. I just meant in the last, like, basically since Sigmar 4 came out, I want to say. Yeah. But that's kind of a fun little thing if it's true.
Yeah. I really like the color on those rat dice. I'm just seeing it on stream now. Came out
Thank
really
you.
well. More green, with just like the little bit of black. It looks really good.
Yeah, they came out amazing. Oh, by the way, to everyone, the synthwave orc dice they're not as bright as they appear. I took pictures on my phone and I couldn't get them to look. They're just a little bit brighter. My phone just kind of does that. Yeah, I'm not really sure what to do about it. They're not quite as bright as that, but apparently they're also being shown in like a random order. I'm just noticing. So, but yeah, thank you. Yeah, the Skaven dice I am absolutely over the moon with, and same with the Slan dice. The orc dice, like I love, and I think they might sell better than anything because they apply to 40K as well as Sigmar. But yeah, I think next time I might get them with white pips. I'm not really sure, but you guys can let me know what you think in the comment section. The pictures are fine. I think, the pictures I'm okay. I'm happy with the pictures. I'm just saying that the orc dice are not quite as bright as they appear in the pictures. And they are ultra matte, and Carson was saying that before the stream. Maybe it's just because they're ultra matte that they're just not going to be as bright, and that's possible too. I don't know. I'm this is the first time. So the Skaven or the Horned Rat dice and the Hypnoslan dice, those are both like remakes of dice that have been very popular in the past. The York dice was just a fever dream I had that I made. Oh, and I do have more dice coming. Again, I'm getting new Kraken dice probably by the end of the month, maybe early next month. So, yeah. If that matters to anyone, I am going to put them up on Facebook. Pretty soon. So, if you really like anything, especially the orc dice, I'm not sure that they might just go. You know what I mean? Because orcs are crazy popular and they exist in Sigmar and 40K. So anyway, all that said out of the way. Yes. I guess tonight we're going to talk about the Battlescroll. And if you guys have any questions or anything you want, like Carson in particular, obviously to talk about in terms of update or balance or his opinion, let us know while we're going through this, or let us know in the comment section later on. You know what I mean? And then we can hopefully hit you up there. But first of all, I think we should go from we should zoom out on the game in general. What do you think of the balance overall right now?
I think it's interesting. I think that there's definitely some problems with internal balance in a lot of these indexes, just because
or even armies.
Or even armies, yeah. Where like a lot of the rules, well, because I mean the thing is, like, the initial books, we know that they were very similar to the indices.
That's true.
Or not much different, just because they weren't going to write a whole index and then 3 months later be like, let's write a whole completely different book. Like that would be kind of crazy. And it sucks for those armies for sure. But I think that because of the simplicity of them, it definitely skews towards like not having a whole bunch of different units, like a toolbox army kind of thing. But yeah, I think it's okay. Like, it's not terrible.
Right.
It's probably I don't know if I'd say it's the best it's been in the edition. There's definitely some problems out there right now, but there isn't like any one army, I think, where people are just like, that's a problem and it's got to go like completely, like there was with Night Haunt. Like, because in the past you were seeing, and I think a knee-jerk reaction is people are going to say Slaves to Darkness is that right now. But I think the counter argument to that is that Slaves to Darkness isn't winning nearly every tournament. They're 4-1ing a lot, and that is a problem. If it's like an easy ticket to a 3-2, 4-1.
Right.
But when in the past you had Night Haunt players that like maybe don't go to very many tournaments, aren't super experienced, or like they're bringing like basically all the same list and like going 5-0 with basically relative ease, that's a huge problem. And we definitely don't have anything like that right now. So overall, I think it's like okay.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. Like you brought up the like I don't think it's ever been better, and I think I agree with that just because like when would it have been better? It certainly wasn't better out the gate, you know. And like I think
this is all 4th edition. Like
I
think
we're only talking
Balance
about
was better
edition.
at the end of 3rd, but they had an entire edition
3
worth.
years. Yeah, totally agreed. Yeah, I'm not really sure where I fall on 4th edition right now. I've been playing more games lately, but it's one of those things where you can kind of get like, depending on how many armies you play, you can kind of get like a little bit of tunnel vision where you're like, oh, well, this is like, this edition sucks because like shooting sucks and like, that's what I rely on, or I don't know, like, but then it's like, okay, well then you go and play, like Slaves to Darkness or something like that, and you're like, holy crap, this is totally different than any of the other armies that I've played, and like it's super like dynamic and like it's really good. So to get like, I think like the best people to ask about an edition are the Carsons, the Matt Beasleys, the Matthiases that play like every army and know all these armies to really get it. But the other thing too is that like I always talk about it because like the tournament scene is very important, and it actually, I think you can only balance a game at the highest level that is being played. I don't think you can balance a game at a low level. So it just becomes, okay, like what's good for the tournament scene isn't necessarily good for everyone else, which is the vast majority of people playing the game, right? So I think that's where Slaves to Darkness is more of a problem. You know what I mean? Like, and again, this is getting into specifics, obviously. So we'll get into more detail in a minute. But like those types of armies, like the 3+ save armies that everyone's complaining about right now. You know what I mean? Like, is Age of Sigmar a 3+ save meta? Maybe, probably, frankly. But like, okay, what are we going to do about it? And then like, I don't think that answer is the same for every army that even has a 3+ save, right? So, yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you, what you said almost wholesale, though. I'm just realizing that none of the synthwave dice are being showed right now, so I'm just going to fix that.
Sure.
Where do you want to start? Or sorry, did you have a...
I think I'd like to kind of, take a look at the chat a little bit and then kind of discuss some more about the overall state of things. I see people saying Daughters of Cain needs help. I think Daughters of Cain is in an interesting spot where if you kind of get all of your buffs off in any given turn, like you just win. Because you will just flatten someone if you get everything you want in any given turn. However, there's like 5 things that you want, and getting all of them is pretty rare. And so it's like getting 3 of the 5 things, you're like, I'm pretty happy. This is all right. It becomes a game. But if you get none of them, you just lose. So It's in this weird spot where it almost feels like a destruction army in some ways, where it can be paper thin, kind of like ogres, where your theoretical damage cap is insane, but if things just don't go your way when you need them to, you're just going to fall flat on your face and lose. So I think that it needs a little bit more protections for stuff like that. Keith says, any advice for Cities of Sigmar Humies player, specifically advice that isn't spam hammers and dark elves? Well, um, yeah. I mean,
That's basically your advice. Is that what?
you can do some interesting things if you want to play like a painting army with Cavaliers, just because they're relatively cheap, and you kind of have to ignore that they do any damage whatsoever because they don't. However, if you get like the Field Marshal with Relic Envoy, and you make it so that they can take an order anywhere on the board with them, and then all of a sudden they're just like rushing into someone's face, being 30 wounds on a 3-up, 5-up, that they just have to deal with. That can be really tough to deal with for a lot of people, and it's so much surface area that they can't realistically retreat and charge away from them very easily either. So that's kind of a fun strategy, and then you're kind of just taking up board space. Maybe you get some Fusiliers like taking pot shots at people and stuff. Talia is quite interesting and good. Yeah, those would kind of be the directions I'd say to go for humans. And then Big Ron says, no nerfs to Stormcast, please, and buff ogres. I agree with the second part of your sentence, but not the first. Justin Sloan says, Morbegs are dominating 100%. Yeah, that's one of the armies I wanted to bring up is like maybe they're a problem right now. Flesh Eater Courts got simultaneously a points buff and a rules buff at the same time last Battlescroll, and we saw them immediately do really, really well. And especially on spread maps, like 6 objective map, it's really difficult to contend with Flesh Eater Courts if they're like really playing the avoidance game, just because they have more non-interactive tactics than you do and crazy recursion.
I was gonna like early on when you actually like no one ever pointed this out, but you were dead on the money. FEC, like I've been saying this for ages. Be very careful when you change rules and change points. And they did that for FEC. And I was just still like, because they were in such a rough spot before. They were like one of the worst before. And then they did like a major overhaul on them. And you said right away, Carson, you were like, I think this might be the best army. It's probably going to be one of the best armies. And that ended up being completely, I was like, I don't know about that. I'd say probably top 5 for sure, but no, like I think they're showing right now that you are absolutely right. They're crazy strong. So good job, you jerk.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think with some light tuning they can return back to being just a good toolbox army, but right now it's like they have one too many tools in their box, and it's a little oppressive.
Right.
And then so we see Age of Connect saying, which book will be the first printed that isn't a copy paste from the index? I don't think there's going to be a satisfying, resounding, this is the one from the community. It's going to be kind of like a gradient. As we get further and further into the books, we'll kind of realize, like, wait a minute, this one's not anything like its index.
Right.
Or maybe that's not true, because we'll always have the index to compare it to. I don't know. I'd imagine it's not going to be at least until 1 year after 4th edition launched.
Right,
so.
Right. Just because they needed time for the community to react, and then for them to like change things that are already set in motion. Probably, yeah. I think that's a good call. Okay. Do we want to? Should we start with order?
Start with order in general.
Yeah, like. Should we start going through the armies? Or
yeah, we can do that.
Okay. Let's how should we do
this? Let's just go through each army. Why not?
Let's do it.
Warhammer.com.
I'll pull that up in the background. I'm not going to cover up these beautiful, beautiful dice, but I will just have it kind of flashing in the background.
So, I mean, I guess we can start with Cities of Sigmar.
Right. It is right there at the top.
I think that Cities of Sigmar is actually in one of the healthiest spots of every army in the game, just because every single list that I see for Cities of Sigmar isn't like, sure, you can spam hammers or dark shards or executioners or whatever, but the most successful lists that I see are run by people like Devin Quartman and Jake Seguin, Jeremy Lefebvre, to name a few people. And they're usually like quite a mix of a bunch of different things, like 4 or 5 different tools in one army. And I know that, Keith, you were saying like spamming dark elves and dwarves. Like there are still places for humans in it. It's just like they're not the main chunk of the army like hammerers and dark shards and executioners and whatnot are. They're usually like your command corps, your field marshal with relic envoy. Sometimes people can run fusiliers, and sometimes people run cavaliers, but it's not very common. You'll see Talia, who's a human. Like, I think they're in a pretty good spot, and I think the only thing that they really need is maybe the command corps shouldn't be as cheap as it is, because they're ridiculously tough for what I think is like 160 wounds. So for that much utility, or sorry, 160 points.
Okay. Oh, that's what
yeah.
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 Anything that's 160 wounds is probably going to be pretty tough.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think they overlooked that. It's 160 wounds for 160 points. It's a little much.
Point a wound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think cities is in a good spot. Do you have anything to add to that?
I don't know enough about cities. I've noticed that like what I'm seeing is less humans overall, and I think it behooves them to create an basically like a balance, an internal balance for Cities of Sigmar that allows you to just take the new models. Like, I think it's just good for their sales, and I think it's what a lot of people want when they bought into it, because these new boxes came out, and they're like, I want to play with these cool new models, and it looks like people are mostly having success with very old models, like 20-year-old models. So, yeah. I mean, but I'm not, I don't know enough about them to talk intelligently, like so many things. So, yeah.
That's fair. Tom B says, do you think dwarves and elves will be taken out of cities? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
No.
What I hope is they get resculpts. That would be great.
Yeah, that's what I think is going to happen. I think it's going to be like, yeah, I do think that like the current models that they have right now in Sigmar are probably planned to be brought over to the special design studio or whatever it's called. And then we'll get, new models. We'll get like a new dwarf army that's going to be more fantastical and probably interesting. Might get combined with Fire Slayers, might not. But I think then like later on, it'll be more of like a soup thing where you can kind of, it'll be like Orc War Clans, where like there'll be a special section where you can mix and match you know what I mean? And then something like that. Hopefully more robust than Orc War Clans. But yeah, I don't know.
Hopefully. Are you talking about KO and Fire Slayers or cities?
No, I meant like
or cities being split into its respective.
Sorry. No, not Fire Slayers, but like when they resculpt Duardin to have them be something a little bit more interesting in Age of Sigmarified or whatever, like more fantastical and interesting, frankly. And then they'll take the current dwarf models that are in Cities of Sigmar, put them in the old world, because they seem to be segregating everything like very purposefully. And like we've heard more about that from like Peachy and different people like that have talked about it. And so then the new Duardin sculpts will be their own army. Maybe they're with Fire Slayers. Maybe they're also with KO. Probably not KO, but like maybe, I don't know. We'll see, right? And then, but I think like certain chunks of Duardin and like whatever Dark Elf resculpt, or if they're Umbraneth or whatever they are, I think maybe you'll be able to kind of put them into Cities of Sigmar in a special section. Maybe. This is like wild tinfoil hatting that I'm doing, frankly, but yeah.
And certainly not the Battlescroll. But
no, that's true. But I mean, that wasn't the question. Yeah, the question. Yeah. But I mean, that's where I like that's where I live, is tinfoil hatting about. So if someone asks me, I'm gonna go for it.
You'll bring that right out. Then next up, I think, is Daughters of Cain, which I kind of already talked about. It's a really tough army for them to deal with, I think, because it's so volatile. I think that just with a little bit of extra tuning, they could become a really impressive army to play against, and they can kind of become the new Slaves to Darkness, I think.
I agree. I think they got to be careful with them, because in the past they had like, there was a time where Daughters of Cain had like for a year the highest win rate the game has like ever seen. It was like 76%. So they do have to be careful with what they do.
Yeah, 100%.
They had a re-rollable 5-up ward save in a bubble.
Ooh, that's disgusting.
Yeah. And they were like the killiest thing in the game, and they were super fast. It was nuts. Lots of models. Whew.
I hate that.
And of course,
Fire
Veronica
Slayers,
was into them.
Fire
Sorry.
Slayers, I don't know that they're going to do anything to Fire Slayers yet, just because they've seen a couple good results, but I think that takes quite a lot of skill to play. I remember distinctly, Rob, you saying, "Why did they give all of these cool rules to the diaper dwarves?" Like when we were kind of discussing like what the lists were doing. He's
paraphrasing everyone.
But I remember you saying, "Why did they give all the cool rules to this army?" Basically,
yeah.
Where Fire Slayers actually have a really cool rule set right now.
They have an amazingly cool rule set. I'm quite jealous. Yeah.
And their main problem, I think, is literally just model silhouettes. It's hard to tell them apart, and therefore is not fun to play as or against. But as far as balance goes, I think they're in quite a good spot. Honestly, they're good.
I agree. I think the right player can take them to the top, and a bad player can be absolute poop with them, like any army. So.
Yeah.
There's
definitely a pretty low skill floor with this army,
or high skill floor.
High skill. Yeah. That means it's tough to.
It's tough to learn and even more difficult to master.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, yeah. High skill floor. So I don't think they're really going to get touched, or I don't think they should be touched. And then after that is Ideneth Deepkin. I don't know. We've seen we're
getting a new thing for them pretty soon anyway. So I just leave them. Like they're like maybe my second favorite army, but probably my second favorite army actually. But like I don't know. I think I kind of hope that because we've had basically the same rules on the eels now. Actually, the Ishlian changed quite a bit in this edition in the index, but we've had like more or less the same rules on most things since AOS 1. Like I think it's time to like rethink some stuff. I really love the tides, frankly. Like that's something that's just so freakingly awesomely thematic that I almost don't hope that that's the one thing that they don't change, but I think they need to go back to the drawing board with some stuff, conceptually. But again, that's not to do with the Battlescroll, right?
Yeah, and I think the internal balance in IDK right now is like pretty decent. They have a really small amount of war scrolls to begin with, so
very small.
You'll see a lot of the same units, but that's just because there's not a lot to choose from in the first place.
But then you're seeing other than thralls, like
I was gonna say that's like the only thing that you don't see ever because they're so bad right now.
And it's no, but they've always been that way. Like I have 30 painted thralls and like 20 or 30 different painted reavers, and like reavers have been good at times. They've definitely had their moments in the sun, but it's always been where the Namarti in general have always been where they struggled. And like the Soul Render, like what a crazy badass model. And like there was a time where they were like takeable, arguably, with Morphan and like. You know what I mean? And all this other stuff. But like the coolest models that everyone wants to play are the eels, the sharks, the turtles, the whatever, right? And hopefully we get some more new models and make them even more interesting and dynamic. But like there are fans of Namarti out there, and I like them, but like, most of the time what I really want to play is eels and stuff like that anyway. So I think what they're doing right now is fine. But yeah
it's also just thralls. Like Namarti reavers are perfectly takeable. They're quite good. Even there's a whole subfaction around them that's really it makes them really interesting. So I mean, I guess they could adjust thralls a little bit. They can maybe make sharks a little better. They're not in a great spot right now, but I still see some people bring like one of them just to be cute or something like that. I think the main thing is that what's up?
Sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but like, I think they need to like conceptually change thralls and even the reavers, like give them 2 wounds or whatever, because you can't have these ultra elite armies or ultra elite infantry with like just the crappy save. You know what I mean? Like they just die and like you just never see value out of them. Like they need to like have like a 5-up ethereal like gene stealers or something like that. You know what I mean? Just something like they're sensing stuff in the ether sea, so they're reacting to it, or maybe just it's just in melee or whatever because they just don't see that shit coming because they don't got eyes or whatever. Like, figure it out though. But like, I think they need to go back to the drawing board with Namarti in general. I do agree that the Reavers have had their time in the sun and they are definitely takeable now. And they've been times where they've been overtuned even, but just conceptually stuff needs to change, I think, for them. Sorry, I did interrupt you, I think.
No, it's all good. That, I mean, pretty much sums it up. I think we're pretty aligned on IDK. Alex says thralls are a war scroll problem, mixed purpose. Yeah, absolutely. Like there's some war scrolls in the game right now that are just like they don't serve any one purpose well enough, or sometimes there's an issue where, and this isn't for thralls, but a war scroll will be like too tuned in the direction of messing with like objective control, but then they just die, or something like that, and then it's just like, all right, so that doesn't matter whatsoever. But yeah, so I guess next is Caradron Overlords for order. Caradron's an interesting one because I've seen some people do really well with them. Like one of our clubmates, Will, can do quite well with them. I remember in an RTT not too long ago, or actually, no, probably more like 4 months ago now, he was just like tabling people like over and over again. But the problem with them is always going to be objective control. Like they're just so low surface area and they're so like projected in one direction that they can't contend on these big spread maps. And if they go against someone like FEC that can contend on a spread map, they just automatically lose. And I think that's kind of a fundamental problem with them. So I don't know how you would necessarily fix that, though, is the problem. Because with KO, you tend to see like one, maybe two boats in the army that the entire army is centered around. And they kind of all have to go in the same direction to be like projecting that threat.
Yeah. KO have always been this impossible army to balance. They're either like way overtuned or super underpowered and or are difficult to play, which I think is the case now. And I think they're relying on, like, frankly, what I would call shenanigans to win. You know what I mean? It's like I can get in there, I can redeploy at like inside the boat and then like move around, and then your opponent's kind of going like, what are you talking about? Like, this is not, like, this is gobbledygook. Like, it almost feels like gotcha or abuse of whatever. You know what I mean? When you're encountering it, when you don't know what's going on. But it's like the only way they can win. So it's like, okay, what are you supposed to do as a KO player? And like, I don't know. It's so hard. I think that this is not currently a good take on them, though. I think that even though they've never had a great take on them, I think this is like not the best one that they've even had amongst those. I don't know what they do. I don't know what they do. I think they need like a fundamental rewrite. They need to like completely reimagine the army, maybe. Like don't they all have jetpacks, even the guys on foot? Like maybe they just all move kind of fast and the boats are just like reimagined. Like aren't they the only transports in all of Age of Sigmar? Yeah, like
except Lockshon and Soulseeker, I guess, but yeah.
Super Longshot, but he's this endless spell, and he's kind of like, yeah. But like those, like, it's like 40k though, where you're imagining that they're inside the boats. Like maybe that needs to change. Maybe that's the problem. You know, like they're fully manned. I don't know. Like I don't need to get into like lore reasons or whatever, but like they've never like successfully had a well balanced KO. Like IDK last edition, it spent the whole edition at like 50% on the nose for the most part. Like, they've done IDK in the past very well. I think they can do it with KO, but I think it's like, it's going to need some creative thinking. Yeah.
I think both of us are kind of on the same page where, like, I relatively know how KO performs, and I've seen them do well. Like, I've seen good players project them into good spots.
For sure.
But I don't know that there's anything like hugely glaring that needs adjusting for the purposes of a battle scroll. So I think for the most part, they're going to stay the same.
I think so too.
Yeah,
I guess we're like off topic again. And Age of Canucks brought it up that they're supposed to get one pretty soon. It's going to go like Soul Blight and then IDK, Night Haunt, and then I think KO. So the 40k army in fantasy is a rough sell for balance. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, it's like, how do you do that? Like, I don't even know. Like a complete reimagining. Anyway, people really like them though, and honestly, it's one of the more creative things they've ever done in terms of an army. And they came out in AOS 1, so they're really cool. Not for me personally, but like, I don't want them to get rid of them. I think they're like, yeah, it's like Bison in Street Fighter. Like I never used to want to play him, but I've always wanted him to be there. Just to get that reference out of the way.
Yeah, fill out those bingo cards.
Yep. And then we have Lumineth. Okay, I have no idea. I'm gonna
Lumineth.
I'm gonna extradite myself from this whole conversation in Realm because I don't know anything.
Yeah, Lumineth is it started as a problem army in the edition where we saw the Huracan spam, which got promptly beaten into the dirt. We saw, I guess that was the problem with them, but they've got a very deep bench of things that are still quite good, like still quite takeable.
And they play in all phases of the game very well, or they have the ability to,
Yeah, exactly. You can be running a techless build if you want to, and even if you don't, you have an Enlightener, which is going to be a really good support piece. You've got, if you want to run Sentinels, they're really good just because you can be getting that 24-inch range shooting. Having some Wardens is nice just for like the front line. Dawn Riders are still going to be really fast and hit really hard if they're on the charge. Like, there's a lot of interesting pieces, and I think that maybe they even deserve to be buffed a little bit points-wise. And I know that's going to get some hate, but I think that they're an army that's solid. But they might have gone a little too far with like I don't see Lumineth on top tables ever anymore. I see them a lot on mid tables and they do kind of okay. But I think that they're in one of those good spots where they can be a pretty good castle army and they get a lot of tools. But they just need a little bit more. Like just points, no rules. And just like just a tiny amount, I think. That's my prediction.
And I think like there are some armies out there. Like, I don't think this is true of Blades of Khorne, but I think like some armies like Lumineth are almost conceptually designed to be a little higher skill floor. You know what I mean? Like, how are you going to make that army so it's not like a decently high skill floor when you're playing in all these different phases of the game, especially like an army that like is going to rely on magic and whatnot. You know what I mean? It's just like there's only so much you can do, and so because of that reason, I think, you don't want to like scare everyone off though, right? We got to, I think I agree with you. I would like to see them buff, like, what are they called? The hammer dudes, the cow guys. You know what I mean? Yeah, because like even if they're like, first of all, we've never really seen them properly in a meta, and like, you can be a little more daring, I think, with your points adjustments and stuff like that with those guys than you can with like the potential cancer causing, like shooty jump around lists that are just like super frustrating to play against.
Yeah, exactly. Like, there's always the risk that you just make a war scroll way too efficient, and then Tom Guan is going to spam it at his next GT. But like,
that's true.
It's still, you're right. Like something like that, it's a little more. You can be a little bit more like aggressive with your points buffs. But yeah, that's those are my general thoughts though on Lumineth.
Cool. Okay, then we're on to Seraphon. Okay. Oh man, Seraphon are doing so well right now, and I think it's like, okay. So from the beginning, right? In the beginning, there was this unit called Kroxigor that were, to most of us, obviously good. And then, for some reason, they raised the points on Agridons because they're easier to play, I guess. And they lowered Kroxigor. And I didn't understand it at the time, and I still don't understand it. And so they just smash everything. I don't know. Seraphon's hard. Like, they're so deep. and I think they actually have another high skill floor army. You know what I mean? That's not always true, actually. There are ways of playing them that's simpler, but I don't know. What do you think, man? What do they do with Seraphon? Like they're currently like win percentage. They're doing quite well, from what I understand. I haven't been paying too much attention to that.
Yeah, I think Seraphon is one Slaves to Darkness nerf from being the problem army.
Right.
I think that they are extremely good right now, like oppressively so sometimes if things go their way.
Yep.
And I think that where they fall over is if you have like a quintessential castle busting army like Slaves to Darkness is, like just raw output being applied in one spot, which is where Seraphon tends to be.
Right.
If you don't have that in your meta, then they're just going to run rampant, right? And it's going to be a huge problem just because Seraphon's really good at picking off the important pieces that are kind of behind the lines.
Right.
Because Croak is just going to be like hitting stuff 18 inches away, on average killing a foot hero if it's in range. He's got the Bastillodon, or you've got the Bastillodon for even more mortal wounds. A lot of people are running the Shadow Claw, or the pile in mortal wounds one, where if you're in combat
Arc of
with them,
Sotek?
No, I mean the sub faction.
Oh yes. Geez.
Shadow Claw?
No, that's the skink one. I hate myself.
Oh god, unrelated, but yeah.
Yeah. Oh, we were talking about Seraphon. Oh, that's so annoying. I'm sure that'll get there. I'm sure someone will tell us in the comments.
Yeah.
Yo, Brayden,
You know what I mean,
thanks
though?
for hanging. Sorry.
Yeah, nice to see you, Brendan.
Yeah.
You missed.
Really
We're in the order section of our predictions.
Right.
Sunclaw. Sunclaw.
Sunclaw. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Ludovicus. Yeah, exactly. Awesome. I think that there's just like Seraphon is extremely tough right now because you've got access to what is effectively +3 to save on some of your units and +2 to save on almost all of, or actually on all of your units if they're wholly within your territory. And in addition to that, they've got just like really consistent multi-phase output. And then on top of that, you have Kroxigor, which just slaps something out of existence if they're alive to do so, right?
One of the hardest hitting things in the game, and they're super hard to kill on 6 wounds. You know, the Slans bring stuff back. You can make them faster because they are infantry, kinda. I mean, technically they're infantry. There's just like there's so much to it. And then we haven't even talked about Hunters of Huanchi, which are just like busted. Like they just show up. Like most stuff in the game, like most of the time we say like okay, yeah, like you have to hit and wound, and the wound has to go through for my stupid effect to go off that has like not that big an effect. Them it's just like you have to target them. And then I think it's on a 2-up 1d6 charge, and it's just like, okay, I've got like a 50-50 shot of making a freaking 3-inch charge. Like that's crazy. Like there's just so much. I don't know. And like our good friend Eric, I'm playing Eric tomorrow actually with his Seraphon. So like this is gonna feel like an attack on him. And it's not like I love Seraphon too. I have Seraphon. I haven't been concentrating on them lately, but they're like Skaven, and then Deepkin or Seraphon are like my next 2 favorite army. And just the time of day, you know what I mean? Like what I've been reading lately, how long ago did I watch Jurassic Park? Like there's a bunch of factors that go into what becomes my second army at that point. But I often just don't get a chance to play them because like I'll play Eric and I'll live vicariously through him or just something like that. You know what I mean? I often end up playing whatever the channel needs me to play and Skaven. Yeah. So...
like as for what I think they should do to Seraphon, I think they should probably nerf them in such a way where they have like maybe one less tool at their disposal. Also, thank you, Jason. It's very kind. Okay, who's gonna get it?
I
see Josh L. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jason. You're so kind. Jason's been around for so long now, and he's so nice. Much appreciated.
Anyway, I think that they should nerf them in such a way where they have probably one less tool to use. And I also do think that I agree with the hunters who want Shi with Starstone Bolas, that it should be if they actually sink damage into something, then on a 2 or 3 up or whatever it is.
Or how
it's
about if they
minus
if they
price.
just wound? Like they just have to wound. Like it's crazy. And it's not like they're only getting one shot at it. Anyway.
Yeah.
Alex says delete Croak, but he also said that about Techless, so take him with a grain of salt.
Yeah. And then I think what they're actually going to do with Seraphon is I think they're just going to bump Croak a little bit. And that's about it. I think Croak will go up in points a little bit, and that's probably the extent of it.
I
and
think
to be
they
honest,
should
I think
raise Kroxigor too.
I think so too. I hope they do, but I don't know that they will. And I think if they don't, then it's going to be a problem.
You know what's interesting too is it's like at the start, like to Eric's credit, by the way, I want to point out he's been playing almost exclusively Seraphon since like the end of 2nd edition or something like that, right? And he's been playing them at the start when people said that they were not strong, and then and he's still playing them now. But you notice how like once people realize, obviously things have changed balance wise, but it's crazy how like everyone's jumped onto them now. Now that like everyone's realizing. But Eric was part of those people that kind of figured out what to do. He kept kind of like, going back at those battle traits and kind of going like everyone was kind of going like, oh, obviously the first one you take is the +1 to cast. And now he never takes that. You know what I mean? It's like often the one that a lot of people were saying you don't use, which is the -1 to people's rend when you're in your territory or whatever. But like, or the movement one or whatever. But anyway, it's hard. It's hard. I don't know what they do, but I think a few simple changes actually probably work.
Yeah, I think so too. LW in the chat says, is the Battlescroll coming out tomorrow? We're thinking it's going to be the 19th. Is like the general consensus of the community right now. Just because the 40K data slate is going to be this week, and it's usually AOS 1 week after.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you, by the way, Jason, for doing a much better job of promoting this podcast. If you guys are enjoying it so far, please consider liking the video. I actually just recommend liking any video that you're enjoying, because I've noticed that the videos that I like, I get sent to my inbox or whatever on YouTube or whatever, even if I don't subscribe. Obviously, we want you to subscribe, because then we can start maybe doing some other stuff that we can't do without more subscriptions. Next is Stormcast Eternals. This might be a little divisive. This might be a little spicy. I'm not an expert, but I really want to hear what you have to say on this, because I asked Matthias a few weeks ago, just to set this up, what you think has been the best army since the inception of Age of Sigmar 4.0? And he said Stormcast Eternals, which I found very interesting. I was sure he was going to say Slaves to Darkness, but I like to not put words in people's mouth. You know what I mean? And he said that, and I was just like, really? It actually took me by surprise. Obviously, I'm not an expert. I'm not saying I am, but that's why I want to hear what you have to say.
No, I pretty much wholeheartedly agree with what he said, where if you were to take the average of how they've done since 4th edition, they probably are the best in the game. Just because...
Interesting.
Stark, who's just popped up in the chat now, played me with the list at Tacoma, which came out, I think that was like a week after 4th edition launched or something. That list and how it functions and how it plays is nearly unchanged today. And it's still incredible. And the only reason why he probably didn't, like, not necessarily win Tacoma, but like podium, was because Nighthaunt was so rampant at the time that it was just kicking them down. And Nighthaunt had the ability to just cross the table and smack them and survive
with
kind
a
of what
whole
they were.
army. Yeah,
exactly.
It was crazy.
So I think they still, like, Stormcast is another one of those armies that has a really deep bench still.
Right.
And I think it's a War Scroll problem with some of the problem units that we see. I think you can nerf them, and sure, you can make them unusable with points, but eventually they'll creep back down and become kind of a problem again. But I just kind of fundamentally disagree with why is heavy cavalry 14-inch move base and can run and charge and retreat and charge and retreating, shooting, running, shooting, all that sort of stuff. It's like, why? Like, why do you get to do
I
all that stuff?
I mean, and by the way, I think this is a really good point to point out, a really good spot to point out. And by the way, I am checking on that, Braden. Thank you for reminding me. The widget never worked, and I don't know what to do about it. But I think it's good to point out at this juncture, though, that we never are ever advocating that an army gets nerfed into being like, into the point where you feel like you can't be competitive. That's never a thing that anyone wants, except for maybe some of those sadistic people out there and whatnot. But like, yeah, I think, I think what you're saying is correct though about Stormcast for sure.
Yeah, there's a couple key problem units in Stormcast, which are honestly both of the 2 Vanguard Palador War Scrolls. I think are the 2 biggest problems in Stormcast right now, because they're very good at like the top competitive level. It's not an auto win, of course. However, I think every like low to mid table player vehemently hates them whenever they play against them, and they're so surprised.
Against what? Against Paladors?
Vanguard Paladors, either
Right.
both the Star Strike Javelins and the Shock
Right.
Hand Axes. But you just shouldn't have something that tough,
Right.
hit that hard, and be that fast, and recur. Like,
Right.
that's too much. It's a little too much. They really need a War Scroll change, I think.
Stark says, bah, they are fine. Yeah. And the chat mostly disagreeing.
Yeah, but I actually think the rest of the army is fine. Like, I think you have a lot of really good units in the book, and I think a lot of people are really upset about long strikes. But I think it's fine to have a long-ranged shooting unit, because if you think about it, they're 2 wounds each, right?
Right.
Once you get into them, or once anything touches them with like an ability or something like that, they just die. And
can I push back on them slightly?
Sure.
They are expensive. I agree. And then, and like, I know it's a bit of apples and oranges, right? And I'm going to compare them with one of my favorite units ever, Jezzail, right? But Stormcaster the long strikes are hitting on 3s, I believe, right? They're wounding on 2s, I think. And they're -2 rend, and is it 2 damage? And
yeah.
And obviously Jezzail aren't the same price, but they're hitting on 4s, wounding on 3s. You know what I mean? And I don't know. And like, they're not the same price, but like, we're not seeing Jezzail at all. I guess we can get to Skaven in a minute. I just think that they're like, the problem with long strikes is the same thing as it was in the last edition. They're just too easy to use. They're just too easy to point and click and delete stuff very safely for their points. I don't know what they can do though. Like, other than raise their points just slightly, but like, they're still in every list. You know what I mean?
They're not in every list, but they're in most lists for sure.
Fair enough. Like, yeah, I guess I was being hyperbolic technically.
Yeah, for
like,
sure.
Nothing is ever in every list. You know what I mean?
Just to counter that though, is it a problem if one unit is in every list in any given army?
Depending on the army? Like, okay, so like, but we saw like look what happened to Jezzail. Like, we weren't even getting the same faction in every. And again, this is a problem of Skaven. I guess you could actually, you know what? Like, let's take Skaven out of it, because like we'll get there in a minute, right? But like, I mean, if you're talking IDK, which has like 7 different boxes that they have to choose from or something, then you're like, okay, well, like, what are they supposed to do here? Like the Achillean King is a friggin' badass. It's a cool and interesting model. Like, that's kind of a different situation than Stormcast, a book that they've had to cull, like a huge do a huge cull on it, and then they added a bunch of similar amount of units, and it's like crazy deep. I don't know. I think it's like a mixture. It's like, it's super easy to use, and like, they're also cool though. Like, there is that factor where it's like, You know what I mean? Like you'll see Doom Wheels in Skaven lists just because people like them and they think that they're so cool, right? But long strikes are like all of these things. I don't know. I'm not saying like again. I don't want them to. I don't want them to be untakeable. I just think that they're so like. I guess I have to compare it to Skaven at this point, where it's like Ratlings weren't in every list, not even close. They were overperforming for sure, but like now it's like, man, it's just like that. Like the nerf to Ratlings has changed Skaven so much that I'm wary about doing that to Stormcast. But what I'm saying is their book is so deep that I just don't think that that's going to happen. Does that make sense?
The point I was trying to make a while back was like I think it's a problem when you have like 18 long strikes in one list and that is the go-to build.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Whereas
I see, yeah. You only see like one reinforced unit of long strikes maximum in a Stormcast list. Most of the people, the general consensus is like, this is very good, and I really like this in my list. It's a very valuable tool,
right?
But it's not so efficient and so good that my list is just that. Whereas where we're seeing that for Hex Wraiths, we're seeing that right now for Paladors. People are bringing 12 Paladors with Javelins. You're seeing people bring like Chosen spam, Baron Guard spam to an extent, Ardboy spam. Like anytime you have like the same War Scroll popping up 4 times in a list, that's when it kind of starts to become questionable on whether it's well balanced. But I don't think it's a problem necessarily, especially because you have some rules in the game which completely just shut long strikes down, right? Like walk into the woods. Now they do 0 damage, right? And then I don't know, you have Khorne where if they pop up too close, redeploy and you tag them, and then all of a sudden they're useless. You tag them in any way, they're useless. Like it's just, there's so many ways. There's a lot of counterplay to them, and I don't see them as quite oppressive. But like I understand
they are 24-inch range though, right? Or are they 18? They're 18 now.
18. Yeah,
that's not as bad. It's not as bad. Yeah, I mean, like, you know, again, I'm kind of the person that I always, I do like to come at it from both sides and play the devil's advocate. You know, like I think that they're just a little bit too cheap, but I hear what Stark is saying, so that's, you know, he typed it right in there before like we even had it is on a delay. It's funny, it comes up like 40 seconds later. 12 wounds for 400 points, but a 3-up save, you know? Yeah. Our boys too, though.
It's really, really low for like points per wound there. Like that's awful.
Yeah.
Right.
But like it's power projection though too on a 3-up save. Like it's just not the same. You know what I mean?
I'm not arguing that they're not good.
Yeah.
I think they're a very good unit. I just don't think they're a problem. I think it's okay to have very good units in the game.
Oh, for sure. No, there has to be, like, honestly, Ardboys is one of the things that I think, like, it should be borderline spammable. It's their main troop. You know?
Yeah, I think you're
like,
right. I shouldn't have said Ardboys when I said my.
I'm not attacking you. I'm just.
No, I know you're not. Yeah. But I thinking about that. I think I was.
Oh, fair enough. There. Like, I mean, like, or even eels. It's like eels should be the main battle line unit that you want to see in an IDK army. But like Paladors are like a side thing. You know what I mean? Or like Dreadscythe Harridans. It's like, okay, like they're not supposed to be a battle line unit. They're supposed to be kind of a specialty unit. So if you're seeing like 60 Dreadscythe Harridans, then there's probably a problem. But like, yeah. Or like Clan Rats or whatever, you know, like anything that's supposed to be kind of a mainstay of the army that like is part of their identity and like how they should look on the table. I think they should just kind of figure it out so that people can make that happen. Because like there's just people out there who want to just play a bunch of eels or a bunch of Clan Rats or a bunch of Ardboys. But I definitely don't think that like a snipey unit should be one of those units. So maybe it's just like a bit of a matter of like difference of opinion on perspective on what an army should look like, or I don't know. But But yeah, I mean, do you anything else to add about Stormcast? Order's the biggest
There's
section
one,
of this whole thing. So
one thing that I see in the chat right now a lot is that Vigilers should go up as well, and I agree with that sentiment for sure. They're currently
Right.
110 points for 5 of them, and they're if you don't know, their ability is basically if they actually deal damage to something with their shooting attacks, that you just are everything in the Stormcast army is +1 to hit, including melee. Against that thing for the rest of the turn, which is like that's stupid.
crazy. Yeah.
That's very
that's
stupid.
So dumb.
Yeah.
Like honestly, it shouldn't even be all shooting.
Apparently Vigilers are 130, not 110. But
Okay.
still, that's still very good.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Anyway, I think we've talked about Stormcast quite a bit. We can move on to Sylvaneth. Sylvaneth is in an interesting spot. It still suffers from the fact that it's projecting a whole bunch of like charge targets across the table. But I think that on spread maps,
Oh my
so
god!
6
on
objectives.
Spread maps.
Yeah, on 6 objectives, like I don't think you can expect to ever win big against Sylvaneth if the Sylvaneth player knows what they're doing.
Right.
And it's easy for them, or not easy, but like it's not hard for them to like flip it on you and actually win that game. So I think Sylvaneth is actually in a pretty decent spot right now. We see them doing pretty well. Notably, we see a lot of like teams and teams events bringing Sylvaneth, just because they're an interesting kind of like spread map defender.
Right.
So I think they're okay, and I don't think there's going to be any huge changes for them.
I don't think so either. I think they should like, and I haven't studied deep enough. And by the way, when we mentioned like anything before, like I guess Stormcast was the last one, but if it's like the goal is always okay. If something like, let's say Paladors get points nerf, right? I definitely think that there should always be other things that they bring up that we're not seeing at all. And then there should always be that goal of perfect internal balance that's never going to happen, but it's always like what we move towards. So yeah, but yeah, Sylvaneth, I agree. I don't know enough about them to really, you know what I mean? Andy's not playing them lately. He's only playing Khorne. So, yeah.
Yeah, they're very map dependent for sure. Like if Sylvaneth were to show up to LVO this year, it would have had a very bad time. Because like all 5 of those starter maps were just completely dense. And it's just like Sylvaneth hates that, right? So in that way, I guess Sylvaneth has a problem, but I'm not sure how you necessarily fix that with just points and minor rules changes. Right?
Oh, right.
What's up?
Sorry. It's something popped into my head. I should have thought and not said Please continue.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm not sure what else to say on Sylvaneth regarding that. So I think with that, we've covered all the order armies. We can move on to death.
Before we do that, Brayden asked me to find out how many current members we have. We are currently rocking 59 members. Our goal was 200, but like, man, it's a lot harder than I thought because like you have to keep, you know what I mean? Members and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's a lot harder than I thought. So might have to adjust the goal for April or something, depending on what happens. Our goal is so that we can buy some nice lavalier mics that don't sound like, I don't know, like a World War II radio while there's bombs in the background or something like that. So that's just, that's what that is. Okay, so now shall we move on now? And by the way, if we missed anything, let us know. I think you guys can the channel if there's something you want us to really see. Like we obviously don't want every message to be at Sec of Dice or whatever on there. But if you need to catch our attention, if we missed anything, please let us know because it's a lot harder to keep up with the chat than you might think. So Death, you said, is next, and Flesh Eater Courts.
On to another long one.
Yeah,
it's
so hard. Flesh Eater Courts is so hard. I hope they okay. Sorry.
I actually think Flesh Eater Courts, the fix is relatively simple. We talked about it earlier in the stream. They got a points buff and a rules buff.
Yep.
Just hike back the points a little bit.
Just
Everybody loves the
points a
rules.
bit. Yeah.
It's like everyone loves rules buffs. I think they should always stay when they get applied, unless it's like egregious.
Totally agreed. Yeah.
But I think just hike those points back a little bit, give them a little bit less to work with, and it's probably going to become much less of a problem.
Right.
So,
Oh, Keith,
and that's really
scallywag.
my opinion on it. I'm curious to hear what the chat thinks about FEC. If points is just going to be enough, and what do you think as well?
And I think it should be like, I think start slow. Like, I'm not playing FEC right now. We got Darren playing FEC. You know, once I painted them though, like I love them so much, and I can't imagine ever getting rid of them. But yeah, I don't know what units do you think should be changed? Like we just said, like this is going to be a long one, and then we're just like, yeah, just change a couple of points on units, and that feels a little incomplete.
Yeah. I mean, Morbags is the obvious choice for sure. You see people running like 18 Morbags, and they're just like so valuable. And with Lords of the Manor, you can be bringing like if you don't fully kill a unit, it's quite easy to bring it back to full.
Right.
With Master Guard, or is that the whatever the one is that isn't the bringing them back from the side of the table?
Right.
It's
yeah. Because there's a couple of things that you have to have. Like you need to have the I think it's the heroic trait or whatever that brings back an extra one, and then you can do it with the Arch Revenant. You can bring back a whole one, and then you can just use your NDP to bring back 2 each. So you can literally go from one guy left on 1 wound to 6 guys and one on one wound or whatever. So that can be kind of egregious. Yeah, for sure.
And with the enhancement for extra rally dice too, it's like, come on, like you don't need that much. It's a little crazy. So definitely just kind of reducing the surface area there is going to be a big thing.
Right.
And I think that's really it. Yeah, I agree with what Asri said. Yeah, the sub-faction adjusted, Lords of the Manor, Morbegs go up 10, Usharan goes up 20.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree in general. Yeah. I don't want them to like, I really hope that they keep it so Usharan, because like it's like the coolest model they've ever made, or one of them. I don't want him, I want him to always be super playable. Like I want to be, if anything, just a little too encouraged to take him than a little too discouraged, But yeah. Cool. Okay. Now we've got Night Honk. Oh man, I don't know. No idea. I throw my hands up at you.
I think they hit them a little too hard.
Yeah, I think so. But like, I don't know what to do about it. I guess just dial it back a little. Points, mostly.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Like they hit them both rules wise and points wise.
And
it's the same. It's like the.
It's the invert, but like honestly, never do that. If you're gonna increase points and change rules for the better, that's okay. But never do the opposite. Like, why? It's just gonna I guess like they're trying to quiet the mob of people that's super angry about Nighthaunt or something. But like, it's just such a bad experience. Like that's why you never want to be the best army in the game, is because like you're in danger of getting the double whammy, and that feels so bad. And like, it's not like you're having fun playing them when everyone's complaining about how broken your rules are. And then it's just like, okay, I've never had fun with this army now because they've always been bad. Then they're way overtuned at the start of fourth, and now that they're nerfed into the ground again, you're just like, okay, guys, I don't know. Yeah, sorry, a bit of a rant, I guess, but
no, it's all good. I don't think it needs much, but I think that just a little bit of a friendly points nerf or points buff.
You're like, oh my god, again. Asri says Nighthunter actually fine, Meta Chasers ran away. That is a thing for sure. And then it's like, once the Meta Chasers are gone, like we saw that in OBR with OBR in 2nd edition and Slanesh in 2nd edition. I mean, I don't know. Do you play Nighthaunt, Asri? Because like, I definitely think it's like, I don't think that's not an attack, obviously, but it's like, okay, if you're playing the army and you're saying it's fine, then it's one thing. But like, some people call for blood and then they're never, they're never satisfied. I'm not saying Asri's one of those people, but it does matter, right? Like if I say like, oh, if I'm like, no, Giselle are fine, they're super takeable, that means something different than if Carson says it because he's got no skin in the game. But yeah. Yeah, I think it's pretty simple. I think, and I think like a few of these armies actually need like sub-faction changes that we haven't really gone into. I think Nighthaunt is one of them. And I don't change Deathstalkers. Deathstalkers is fine. Never touch that again, right? But the other ones, it's like try and encourage people to take some other stuff, you know? Actually, I guess we'll get to it right now. Or wait, what's next?
OBR.
OBR. Okay, no, the one after this, I'll talk about it. But
Sure. I mean, you're referring to Soulblight? We're not going to see like anything change in Soulblight, I think, because their book is so close.
Right.
But if we want to transition over to OBR, I think that's a book that kind of suffers from internal balance right now a little bit. Like you're seeing a lot of people bring both flavors of the Morghasts, and then you're seeing a lot of people bring lots of Kavalos, but not much. I mean, I guess it doesn't have a huge amount of war scrolls in the army. Let's see. OBR. Oh God, I'm so white. My skin.
You got the anime glasses thing going on right now a little bit.
I guess it doesn't. There's not a whole lot in the army. Just looking through, like Catacross, we see him plenty. Mortek, we don't really see. That's one thing. Gothazar Harvester, you never see. Oh yeah, Necropolis Stalkers, you never see. They're just not good right now. Ark in the Black, there's a build with him that works. Nagash works. Tyrannic Cohort, a lot of people bring. Morghast in both flavors, a lot of people bring. Xantos, we see. Death Riders, we see. Bone Shaper, I don't think we really see. The Mortek Crawler, we do see.
Yep.
Bach Mortian, we see sometimes, but not often. The Oz Effector, I've seen sometimes. The terrain is terrible and is just a liability.
And it's so big.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to make it, if you're going to, like, make people, or, like, if you're going to incentivize people to take it, it has to be good because it's so freaking big. Yeah, it's a huge liability. Brayden says, make Stalkers great again. I don't remember them being great, but I 100% agree because it's one of the coolest units in OBR. Like, they're basically like skeleton Tyranid warriors. They should just blend their stuff. I remember Mortek Guard being good.
I don't know if they can really do stuff to OBR. Like, they're certainly not going to buff. What's it called?
Immortalis Guard?
Death Riders or
oh, right.
Like both of those are very frequently taken right now. Immortus Guard, you'll see 3 of them sometimes just to get like the 4 ward on your big heroes. But I don't know. I think OBR is fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Brayden says Stalkers were amazing in 3rd. I did not remember that. Yeah.
They were, yeah.
Huh. Matthias wasn't playing them against me.
He definitely played them against me.
Yeah, that sounds like him. If there's something that's broken, he'll find it. Qual says, I would love it if they just did a select all on the Skaven subfactions and then hit delete. Truly, those do not need to exist. I'm not sure what you mean, because like they definitely, like every army, needs subfactions and they need to work. The Skaven ones like encourage you to spam stuff, so like I think they do need like a major rewrite. In fact, I think Skaven have been the only army that's ever had like a good subfaction system, and they had it in 2nd and 3rd, and then for some reason they totally changed it. In fact, I've been saying for years every subfaction should be like Skaven. It should be like, take this hero, get this thing. It shouldn't be like, why would we ever encourage people to spam anything? I think that's crazy. But that's where we are. I don't know. OBR needs a full rules rewrite. I think they are what they are until we get a book. I think that's true probably of like quite a few different books. And I think like, you know, every edition, like we always say this, I feel like, but like every edition, you never want to be first out of the gate with a book. You don't even want to be anywhere close to it, especially in an index edition. But yeah. Okay. Should we move on? So the last but not least, Soulblight.
I don't know that we talk about Soulblight too much, just because
they're about to get a whole. Yeah. I don't think they're going to get any changes. I really hope that they give us a reason to not take Bacchanal of Blood. Like, don't make that like it's just so good. Like, I get that like if you're not running vampires, that like it's not as good, but like,
yeah.
What else are people running? Like, I've only ever
dogs piling in and dealing damage. Subfaction. Is really popular.
Okay. Yeah, I guess that's true.
And then,
but
actually, I've even seen the graveyard one.
Oh, really? Okay.
But
like,
what is it?
The skeleton one, essentially, right? Death Rattle something.
Death Rattle Horde or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
I've seen. I don't think it's hugely skewed to Bacchanal Blood.
Okay, that's fair. I guess it's just like my same complaint then, where it's like, okay, if you're going to take the dog one, you're just taking a bajillion dogs. And no one wants to play that, and no one wants to play against it, except for maybe Tom Guan or someone like that, right? But, like, most people don't want to spam one unit. Most people like the look of an army in general, and they don't want to play 200 direwolves, right? So
I think your opinion might be a little skewed based on what you have painted, because you have like exclusively vampires.
No, I mean, I like
and like chaff basically.
I'm not talking about Soul Blight Railers. I'm talking about every freaking army. I don't want it to be like okay, like here's something that I don't have painted enough to take is Thanquil's Menagerie, because you basically are forced to take all Storm Fiends. Like, that's the build, right? Thanquil and a crap ton of Storm Fiends. I have 6 painted Storm Fiends. So, like, I'm not taking that. And it's just like the way they designed, I don't want them to design lists, armies, or sub-factions where you're encouraged to take a bunch of, like a skew list. Like we thought that this edition was going to be the edition where like you're encouraged to take a variety. Like, remember, we've been saying that since 3rd edition. Every army should be ogres and Skaven, because those armies in 3rd edition, you were encouraged to take a variety of things, and that's awesome. That's not what 4th edition has been, and I don't like that. I don't want to spam one thing, you know? Like, I don't want to be encouraged to do it. You know? Anyway, sorry. Okay, another rant over. That's 12 Storm Fiends too few. I agree. I have enough Storm Fiends to run it. I just have to paint them. And Storm Fiends are actually kind of a pain in the ass to paint. At least if you're me and you. Yeah. Okay, sorry, guys. I mean, they are boring and pointless. Yeah, okay, I agree with that, Qual. I think we need to see... actually, we'll get to Skaven in a minute. I have a few choice words for Skaven. But... it's getting heated tonight.
So moving on to Chaos.
Yeah.
And first up is Blades of Corn, which is...
oh, man.
I have a lot of opinions on this one.
Good. Good. I'm hoping you're going to just say mine for me. I'm ranting too much.
I think they overtuned the mortals in Blades of Corn. Just because you're seeing... it's no secret anymore. Like... yeah, it's no secret anymore that, like... people are bringing just a ton of Blood Warriors and a ton of Wrathmongers and just pushing them up the table and kind of brainlessly sitting on points, essentially. And sometimes you'll see like a Bloodthirster in there or Scarbrand, like we saw one of our clubmates, Mike Hammond, do really well with over the weekend.
Yep.
But they're too much right now.
Yep.
They're a problem because of spam, essentially. Like, there's no making some cool combo with Corn. Like, there's some cool things you can do with, like, the sub-faction and Chain Activate, but I wouldn't consider Chain Activate necessarily, like, a fun combo, especially for your opponent. It's, like, cool, you just get to attack with more units than me.
And sometimes it's not just 2. Sometimes it's, like, 3 or 4, depending on how you finagle things.
Yeah, exactly. And, I think that they need to step it back. I don't think they will. I don't think they're going to catch it in time because it was relatively late in the Battlescroll that we've discovered this. Yeah. But I think that it's a problem right now.
Yeah.
And I also think that Bloodletters are terrible. I think that there's like a lot of absolutely terrible things in Corn right now. And it's not terrible in a way that's like, oh, it's just cheap crap and I'll throw it at my opponent for Blood Tithe. You know, that's not a thing. Like, you have better options for that, right? Like Claws of Karanak.
Yeah. The only thing about Bloodletters, too, is that they do come back D3 and they're 2 wounds each. So, unless you can, like, kill them, They can be kind
They have
of
to
a
be in
problem.
combat to do that, though.
Yeah, but then they also like don't they get like a better ward save or something after they fight?
Yeah, but
And
again, like
so
their whole thing relies on them staying in combat, and
yeah,
I think their goal is either you want to like completely pick something up off the table, or usually they just die, right?
yeah,
Like there's a lot of other armies that do attrition way better, and the mortal side does attrition way better too. Because if you put 40 blood warriors in someone's face, the attrition is much better because for every blood warrior you kill, you're taking on average a mortal win back. No,
yeah.
forget if you roll. It's 0.7 or 0.6 mortal wounds back or whatever it is. Just because they've got murder rolls back at you, and then for every Wrathmonger you attack, for every one you roll, you take a mortal wound back, and it's just like it's terrible.
It's
It's
crazy.
miserable.
Yeah,
And then
it is.
they're just like corner tagging you, so you're not getting like super valuable pile-ins and stuff like that. Anyone that's relying on like +1 damage on the charge, like cavalry lists, just completely fall over. Like it's a complete
you don't even
counter.
get to charge. And like, and Asri was saying, you shouldn't be able to murder lust after you run. I'm actually going to one better you there and say you shouldn't be able to do it after a redeploy. It's obnoxious AF to have to stay out of 9 inches. Like, there's too many battle tactics that rely on you getting charges off, and then they can possibly move 9 inches or move 6 inches and then move 3 inches into combat. Andy like tagged me and I didn't like remember. So I was like, okay, I gotta have this. I gotta have like multiple charges go off this turn. And I was already behind, you know, and he's playing 3 bloodthirsters and then just like a bunch of freaking annoying chaff. Anyway, and he just like, it's just like so obnoxious. And like, I don't think that that's fundamentally what the army should be anyway. Like, I don't know why, like, Khorne is like this ultimate like Johnny army for some reason, and it's like I don't think that that's really the zeitgeist of the average like, Khorne player. You know what I mean? I think they should be more like World Eaters in 40k. But I mean, I guess that's anyway. That's getting way off.
I don't think that's a like. I don't think Murder Lust or how Khorne functions is necessarily going to change, or that it's the problem. I think it's just that they made certain things way too efficient in Khorne.
Maybe
But
I don't know.
Some war scrolls are just horribly like Wrathmongers and Blood Warriors specifically just
but like
stupid. Like
moving like a unit like 18 inches and then murdering lusting it into combat, like auto running it. I don't know, like you're not playing the game though. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but that's one special thing that Khorne does. I don't know. I disagree on that. I don't
Fair
think we're
enough.
going to agree on that.
Yeah, that's fair.
But-
Yeah, I don't know. It just anyway, whatever. That's fine. Cool. I guess then what's the next one? I shut. Oh, there it is. Disciples of Titsnitch. I don't know.
Siege.
Horrors again? Are they the problem?
Yep.
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 Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yep. Just lots of horrors. Tzeentch has
Lots
terrible
of
internal
horrors.
balance. Awful internal balance.
That does seem like like it's always been the case, and it's very hard to change. But
Yeah. Ironic that it's hard to change Tzeentch.
yeah. I never thought about that. Oh man, I don't know. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. The problem is that if they nerf Tzeentch, or sorry, if they nerf horrors, then Tzeentch becomes unplayable. Like if they nerf them again.
Yeah, no, totally. And again, like I just want to reiterate because Asri's coming at us in the chat saying, or make mortals great again. That's always the goal. Like if they nerf horrors, they need to do something else, right? And like it does have. How bad do you think the internal balance is for Tzeentch?
It's pretty bad.
Pretty bad.
Considering
Okay. Like what would you give it out of 10? Let's get down to brass tacks here.
like a 2 or
A 2. That's
I'll say a 3.
Yeah, even a 3. That's crazy bad. Like figure it out. Yeah, figure it out. Right.
Yeah, I'm not even sure what specifically they can do, but they definitely need to elevate other parts of Tzeentch. Like I'd like to see Zangor's doing a little better.
Yes, thank you.
and
Absolutely, good call.
I guess if they made Zangors a little better and horrors a little worse, it would probably be fine. The problem is that like the way that the army is designed is that those two don't mix
Yeah.
like at all, right? Like when you take a Lord of Change, every unit that you take that isn't a demon
It's
is
great. You're
it's just
losing
wasted.
value. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because you're not
And I
getting
mean,
1.5 times whatever that unit is, right?
exactly.
By bringing it
Yeah.
back. So
Bring it back.
yep.
Yeah, figure it out. Figure it out. I mean, they don't have a book anytime soon, so hopefully they kind of, you know, I mean, the worry is like that they just kind of look at win rates and then they're just like, oh, well, like horrors are too good, so nerf horrors and then call it a day. And you're like, no, 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 no. That's not what we're saying. No one is saying that. Yeah. Yeah, do something. And I don't know like the other units that are bad, but like, because Skyfires and Enlightened on Disc and Enlightened on Foot, they're all mortal, technically, right? Yeah. Yeah,
Yep.
they need to figure that out. That's hard, though. I don't know what to do, but...
And the solution is not give them recurring or give them the ability to recur. Like I think
what are you
that's
talking
an
about?
important thing because like I originally said that like any unit that you bring that isn't a demon is a liability because you can't recur it.
Oh, yes.
The solution
yes.
is not to make them recur too.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, like, and I don't know what it is. I don't know what the solution is. Right.
Yeah, just like a little bit of a buff on the mortals, as well as I think this is completely tangential, but I think they need to rewrite Blue Horror's split and split again ability. It's really annoying.
Yeah.
And I explained that in great detail in the past that it's actually very unlikely that, especially a new player, will even legally resolve that ability.
Yeah.
So it needs to be
extremely
completely.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. Yeah. Make Kenrick Acolytes good. Make Zangor good. But again, I'm not sure how that looks. Like what if they got like a 5-up spell ignore, or I don't know, like think outside the box. Like maybe that's a terrible idea, but just something. Don't make them recur. Like Carson said, figure horrors out. That's a terrible play experience for literally everyone. And yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Hedonites of Slaaneshi. I don't know.
I mean, the stuff that we've seen do well implies that it has bad internal balance too.
Right.
Just spamming
Fair.
Bliss Barbs, both Seekers and Archers. That's like the current go-to right now. I don't like it. But it is what it is, I guess. I don't know. Just looking at the rest of it, like, yeah, you really don't see most of this book or this index.
Right.
You really don't see most of this index. So this is just a problem of things are just a little bit too tuned towards like rewarding bringing these gigantic blocks of shooting units. And yeah, I don't know. I also don't experience playing against Slaanesh too much, so I might not have a very like nuanced opinion on this.
I do think that like if Ashley says it's actually really simple. If a unit of pinks is destroyed, next movement phase bring back a unit of blues. If a unit of blues is destroyed, next movement phase bring back a unit of brimstones. That is a pretty elegant solution, to be honest. Or even I would say not next movement phase. I would say maybe at the end of the turn, and then it's like maybe tied to heroes or maybe some kind of new titsnitch terrain piece or something. I think that's actually pretty elegant. He just blasted out of my brain whatever I was thinking about until
Slaanesh, shooting.
Oh, right, Slaanesh.
Yeah.
I mean, the issue with Slaanesh is that they need like a fundamental change. They've never really nailed down. Like I know there's like people had their pitchforks out, and we've actually seen some like really good players play Slaanesh really well and do really well with them. But yeah, it does rely on spam. So I think it's just a matter of, isn't it just mostly points then? It's just like bring the units that are not being played, down in points and bring the units that are just being spammed. Actually, maybe even don't even change them like hardly at all. Like, because
Yeah.
they're not really a problem. Maybe they are, maybe a little bit. Like, so maybe like really get like a little bit aggressive with some of the other things, and then with the seekers and stuff, just bring them down just a tiny bit so that they're not the only thing in the army. Yeah, Mortals really need something. Slaanesha's fine, nerf Tom Guan. I mean, we've been saying that for ages now. Twin Souls are great. I will take your word for it. Slaanesh is one of those armies that, like, I like to play against it, but, like, it's the least interest. Like, it's the army that I like the least in the game. Like, I'd play Fire Slayers first. It's just not my thing. And Nurgle, I don't think that's, like, Nurgle's been growing on me because of the humor and stuff like that they have in there. But, like, yeah, ever since I got really sick, like really, really sick in my 20s, Nurgle's just not that funny to me anymore. Speaking of Nurgle, they're up next. I don't know.
Yeah,
I've seen that.
We've seen Nurgle kind of come into the meta a lot more recently, just with the addition of Field Sergeant, and I think the Battlescroll before was like pretty kind to them as far as points go too. My one thing is just like, my God, give them something other than Blight Kings, just because we're seeing lists that are like 25 Blight Kings, 30 Blight Kings, just spam, and they, yeah, I don't think the Blight Kings are like oppressive. I think they're really good and they're really tough.
Right.
But I think that other things need to be brought up to the level of being considered, just
right.
because it's all you see right now.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense to me, I think.
Yeah.
They are like they are also quite tough. And so I think that they're Nurgle, they should be, obviously, but when we get into that, we're talking about that 3+ save meta and whatever, like they're a stone's throw away from being very oppressive and annoying as well, I think. So, but I'm glad to see them. For a while they were kind of down to the dumps and whatnot. Yeah. Okay. Now it is the Skaven. Skaven are very difficult. I have a lot of ideas, but a lot of it requires some pretty fundamental changes. I think Qual and I are on the same page. Toss all the sub-factions in the garbage. I don't think they're going to do most of this, by the way. Here's what I think that they will do. And I do think that they should do this. I think that they either need to change the points again on Rat Ogres, or they need to give them more wounds. Give them at least 5 wounds. Maybe even 6 wounds. The models are just as big as Kroxagor and Trolls and stuff like that. They should be, they should be a lot scarier, bigger, tougher, and I think they need to make some more fundamental changes for Molder. And I think that they will do that. I think that they will lower the Brood Terror again. I think that they really need to do something about the Hell Pit. I have not had a game where I've not just been like, why does this thing even exist? 13 attacks hitting on 4s, and like, you get even like a normal roll to slightly bad roll, and it's just like, this thing is so stupid. It's just like, you know what I mean? It's just like, ugh, it's so annoyingly bad. There's a lot of hitting on 4s, like Rat Ogres are hitting on 4s, the Brood Terror's hitting on 4s, the Hell Pit's everything's hitting on 4s. So it's like, you need a CP to like go in and be anything even close to reliable with your damage. Like you need to spend it, and it's like, you can't spend it everywhere. And like, it's like, what are they doing? Like, Rat Ogres are on 4 wounds and a 5-up save. Like, they just die, I brought them back against Andy, and then they just died right away. Like, nothing ever happened with them. And they didn't kill anything either, because they're on -1 rend. And with 4 wounds, and then you take D3 at the start of the combat phase, and, like, if it once taken 1 wound, you might lose a Rat Ogre, and then that whole thing becomes useless. There's just, like, I don't know, like, Molder needs a serious fundamental change. I don't think they're going to do enough of a fundamental change. I put my list in the chat in our Discord chat, and I said, like, what do we think? Like, and I said, is the problem just that it's Molder and like Molder's just no good right now, or is there something to be salvaged here? Should I switch styles? You know what I mean? Like, should I play more games? And Matthias was just like, the answer is that it's Molder, and you know what I mean? And I was just like, yeah, fair enough. And that breaks my heart because like Molder's got a bunch of cool new toys that I want to play with, right? But it's like, it really feels just like you have to have shooting in Skaven. And even then it's not that reliable. Like if you're doing Overwatch with like Rattling guns, like I did like 3 or 4 wounds against Matthias's Blight Kings because they're hitting on 5s at that point. And you know, his save is like super good for them. I don't know. I think the crazy thing is that Rattling guns are still cheaper than Scourgers. So I think like when Skaven was approaching the 50% win rate, never got there. When they were approaching the 50% win rate, Jezzail were like the one thing that was good, and people were taking too many of them, so obviously they need to do something about that, right? But Scourgers are still 190 points. So for me I had a unit of Scourgers and a unit of Rattling guns, right? In one of my lists. They nerf Rattling guns, and so I actually had to take the Scourgers out and add more Rattling guns. So they make me spam them more because Scourgers are so bad compared to Rattling guns, and like they're not worth that many points. They're worth less points than Jezzail are, or Rattling guns are. And now that Rattling guns have gone up in price, like Skaven are like one of the worst, you know, win rates in the game now. They're like bottom 3. There's a lot that needs to be done. I don't think they're going to do it, though. Visic needs to come down. I think Kritok is actually perfect now. I think if you run... I don't know what... Like we're starting to see a few Storm Vermin lists, but Storm Vermin are another thing that's like Namarti, where it's like incredibly hard to balance them. Because they're supposed to hit hard, they're supposed to have a little bit better of a save, but like Elite Skaven just feels like an oxymoron, where it's just like why would you ever have something where you're spending a lot of points on few wounds that, you know, like they're not gonna give them a 3-up save, right? So, but they're 1 wound, you know, on a 4-up. I don't know. They just die super quick. Cheaper, but at what cost? Yeah, exactly. Like Kritok needs a bonus hero. Yes, he does. What? I never even noticed that. That's crazy. Because he's not as good as Qual. You're a genius. Yes. Why didn't he get that? That's crazy. Like I'm the one, by the way, Qual, who wrote GW and said, I think this is a mistake. Here is why the Master Molder should be a sub-faction or a sub-hero or whatever. I laid it all out, and then they granted me that. No one has ever said that to me before. He obviously should be, because Zogrok, Anvil Smasher, he's like one of the best named characters in the game. I love him. I think he's awesome. His model's cool. He should be taken, and he's a sub-commander. I don't know if they'll give that to them. Like, I don't know if we'll be keeping the sub-commander thing. I think we need to, frankly. But that's a great idea. Yeah, give him that. And then he'll be, like, super takeable. That's brilliant. I mean, he's at 180 points, but I think so is Zoggy. Yeah. I don't know. Storm Vermin need to come down. I think they do. I think that's, like, the only thing. But it's very hard, because Storm Vermin, you could tip over that, you know what I mean? The balance there, and then they're just like, they're everywhere. So you have to be careful with that. But I think maybe just like another 10 points, you know. I think we might see them everywhere for a time, but okay, like, is it that big a deal? If we start seeing Storm Vermin everywhere, like, they're a mainstay. They're like, what do you call them? What are they called? The Iron Jaws, Ard Boys. They're a mainstay. They're like a main part of the army. Maybe even Clan Rats, just slightly. You know? I don't know. There's actually a lot that needs to be changed about Skaven. I think Rattling guns should stay the same. And like, even though that's the one thing that changed, they got nerfed that, they buffed other stuff, but it was all stuff that no one cared about, no one wanted to take, other than maybe Storm Vermin. So I think the answer is leave. So like that might be a bit of a controversial statement when it's like, okay, well they nerf that, and then now that they're in the dumps, like give us back our Rattling guns, like maybe put them at 160 in the middle, split the difference. But I actually think that they should stay the same. I think like we should just be encouraged to take Scourgers or something else, you know. I actually think Warp Lightning Cannon are a lost cause at this point. I think the Rattling Warp Blaster needs a complete rewrite of its War Scroll. I don't think you can make that thing like not trash. You know what I mean? Because it's just gonna kill itself anyway. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. Skaven need a lot. I don't think that we're gonna get it, but I think that I do expect to see some significant changes just because they're so far down in the dumps that I think people will kind of realize, or GW will realize. But yeah, Rattling gun should buy one roll for the unit to delete both the horrible rule interaction with split fire and get rid of at least a negative play experience for the Skaven player. Yeah, like I'm not sure I understood that, but like I think that like, oh, I meant him to be able to take a bonus hero. Oh, yeah. The problem with Kritok leading though, Qual, is that because he can only take verminous units, and if he's the only named character, he has to be your warlord. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. He should be able to take a bonus hero, at least a claw lord. But I would much rather him be be able to be put in there like Zogrok and a bunch of other, because he's not a wizard and he's not a priest. Anyway, Carson's getting a glassy look in his eyes. I will stop my rant. Do you have anything to say about Skaven?
I don't think so. Pat said something early on, which was that Skaven is very misleading in that it's not actually a starter army and it's very complicated to play. And I think that definitely deflates its win rate. But I agree that it needs some help for sure, and I hope that it gets some.
Yeah. So the thing about Skaven though is they've never been a starter army. Like they're in the starter set, which is I think the misleading part. But they've never been an army that's easy to play or easy to collect because of their very nature. I think that's good to keep in mind. But like some pretty dog poop awful internal balance in the book at the very least, and the sub factions are like just stupid. Because it's just like encouraging spam. It's like, okay, take the Scryer one. Well, if you're not taking all the Scryer units you possibly can, then you're not even getting in it. And it's like, pick 3 units, and like I don't normally get to do that for my Scryer list. So, yeah. Okay. I will reluctantly move on from my one true love.
Yeah, we're moving on to a pretty ground-shaking one, too.
Yeah.
Slaves to Darkness is the problem on everyone's minds right now. I think
that's so well said. That's like, exactly the thing. Yeah.
The problem is that like I hear people say like, okay, I'm making this list and it has this idea, but what happens if slaves double turns you, right? And the answer is always you just lose, and it's really difficult to kind of balance that. And I think that slaves, once again, is an army that has terrible internal balance in that you have Chosen Vanguard, Be'lakor, that's your starting plate essentially, and then you get like a couple hundred points to play with, like 300 or 400 points to play with. And at that point, it just becomes like not fun when you see like every single slaves list is exactly the same. And I think the problem, I'm hearing rumblings that it's going to be both a rules and a points nerf for Slaves to Darkness, and they are. Oh man, it's not going to be good.
Oh man, that's not.
And I think here's why
we'll have to talk after the stream for what Carson's going to do, because like you're not going to play ogres, and your only other army is slaves.
I am just going to play ogres. I'm probably going to bring up a Sparkle Party. Okay. I'll just have fun with them, and then whatever's needed of me for Team Canada, I'll play that, and then that's fine. But like, I think that, okay, so I'm not going to focus too much on what I think will happen to slaves. I think it's going to be bad regardless. I think they're going to beat them into the dirt. Right. I don't think it's going to be nice. What I think is going to change in the meta is basically we're going to see these armies that were relying on not having their castle being busted just propel to the top. So what I was saying before was Seraphon is going to be a problem, right?
Right.
Where you all of a sudden, like a lot of Seraphon relies on being there for a while and they're just kind of attritioning you to death, like taking 2 good turns to really wipe you out. But the problem with that is that if you have an army that can show up and just blow up half your castle or more in 1 turn, then the effectiveness of that really goes down. If that doesn't exist in the game anymore, then it can become a really significant problem. And then I think we're going to see more of these like hyper defensive castle lists, like Nurgle, Seraphon, OBR to an extent, are going to become quite a big problem if they don't get some sort of changes in addition. Just because, like, it's no doubt that Slaves to Darkness is by far the hardest hitting army in the game. Like, by far. And in addition to that, it's not just that they hit hard and stop, because if that was the thing, that you just hit a screen and that would be it. But it's they hit hard, double fight, hit hard behind them. Or something is you put 2 units into it, they hit hard. The other thing steps forward, hits hard, steps forward again and hits hard. It's just like you have to have like a 9-inch barrier of safety. Otherwise it's just not you just can't play against them. And when you have that much threat being projected at you, it just makes certain builds unviable, because if you face that, it's just an auto loss.
Yeah. It's just like rock, paper, scissors, hard loss.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I agree.
So I think...
And honestly, it's not really reasonable to like have to maintain a 9-inch bubble of layered chaff screens to stand a chance. You know what I mean? Like, even in an army where you can build that kind of thing. Hopefully, because Slaves to Darkness is a deep book. It's not as deep as it used to be with like everything that they culled out of there. But like, there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to have like ogroids and like, like a mixture of stuff and make it viable, I think. But I think that you're right. I think that they might just, that super squeaky mob of people that's calling for the death of all Slaves to Darkness will probably be heard a certain amount, and then they'll probably overdo it a little bit.
Yeah, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I see Alex in chat saying Carson going so healed that he's arguing Slaves to Darkness are allowing the rest of the game to be balanced. I think it's possible for 2 things to exist. I think it's possible for Slaves to Darkness to be a problem and to be bad for the game. And I think it's also possible for them to be like the dam blocking what is to come after they disappear. Right? Yeah. And I think what I'm predicting is that if they go away and it's not accounted for that these other armies that could be a problem aren't balanced, then we're going to see a time of relative imbalance, like even more so than we're experiencing now. So I think they have to be very careful.
That's true. Yep. That's true. Yeah, I like that. I think your take on that is really, really good.
Thank you.
Go to hell.
Thank you. Okay. Sounds good.
Right there with you, buddy.
That finishes off Chaos.
It does. Ogre. Oh no, Gloomspite gets. I almost didn't even notice them because it's like bolded. It's new. Gloomspite gets. Yeah. I mean,
I don't think they're going to change them much just because it's a new book.
No, and like the meta hasn't settled for them at all.
Yeah.
Although
they haven't even been legal for tournaments.
Yeah, that's true. They're not even currently legal. Yeah, until what is it? Is it this Saturday or next Saturday?
I don't remember. I don't even know if they'll. I'm not sure if they'll be legal for Sparkle Party even, which is not this weekend but next weekend.
Okay. Right.
But either way, clearly not enough data for them to like actually balance them, so we're not going to see anything on them. So I don't think we have to talk about them.
Cool. Sounds good. So ogres.
And it's definitely not an excuse to move on to the next army.
Take it away.
Ogres.
Yeah.
Ogres. I don't know what they're going to do with ogres.
Oh, Beefy says they're legal after the Battlescroll forgets. Just FYI.
Legal after the Battlescroll. Okay.
So, interesting.
Yeah.
So barely in time for Sparkle Party, right?
Yeah, but there's always a week rules cutoff. like 1
Oh,
week before the
right.
tournament. So
Yeah,
probably not.
yeah. That's fine.
Yep. Anyway,
Poor
ogre
Ricky.
bot tribes. I think there is a viable list out there right now that is spam. That is, it's basically just you have a Frost Lord and you have like 4 Huskards. So you basically just have like
Oh, monster truck.
monster trucks and 5 priests is kind of the critical mass that people are approaching right now. So 6 monster trucks, 5 of which are priests, and the kind of the thing is that you're playing this balancing act game of every single one of them is casting that unlimited spell prayer, where they're just targeting pieces of terrain,
Right.
and then one by one, once per turn, you're just casting the overcharged version of it, so that all of your monster trucks that are near pieces of terrain that have been marked previously in the battle have a 5-up ward. So you're unlocking your 5-up ward again. And because they got that buff where they had 2 to the roll for the trampling charge, you run the sub faction where it adds another 1 to the roll, and then they're doing 4 to 6 mortal wounds per monster truck that charges in. So
Wow.
it's pretty spicy. Yeah, it's good. I don't personally like playing it.
Well, you've never been one to do monster trucks thus far, anyway. Which is interesting because, like, if that would be the one thing I would definitely play for ogres, I'd be like, oh, monster trucks. Like, that's so obviously fun. It's interesting that you're not one of those monster truck bros.
I don't like anything that's one note, right?
Yeah, I agree with that. But like, you know, there's Huskards, and I don't know. I don't even really look at the models. So
yeah. But it's neat. So that's definitely a thing. I don't think that's going to change. I don't think it's a problem. I hope that other parts of the book will be elevated a little bit. And what I hope even more is that maybe they introduce some sort of rules buff for the Gutbuster side of the book, just like they did for monster trucks. And if that's the case, maybe you can have a combination again.
That would be great. That would be great. Yeah. And
But
I mean,
I'm anticipating not much changing. What I would like for them to change is do like a little bit of a revamp on the battle profiles to make it a little bit less restrictive. Because right now you have a lot of things that are locked behind either a tyrant. Actually, the only screen you have in the army, Noblars. You have to have either a Frost Lord or a tyrant to bring them. They're not accessible through any other hero, which is really silly, right? For an army that's just like hyper paper thin, you need screens. Like, and it doesn't make sense that, like, why couldn't a butcher boss around a bunch of stupid little goblins?
Noblars should be able to be taken by anything.
Yeah.
Anything.
If that were the case,
hero.
that would change a lot, right? Because all of a sudden, I like the Frostlord on Stonehorn, and I might still take him, but then I don't have to take him to take a Gutbusters list.
No.
And then I can lean into more bodies, right?
Man, like, what a small change would make such a huge difference for ogres. That really, like, honestly, they could just do that. They could literally just do that. And it would be such a huge deal. Wow.
Yeah. Feast on Flesh needs to be changed too. I think it should be once per battle per unit instead of army-wide. So what it is, and I also don't think it should be a 2-up D3 mortal wounds. That's really stupid for a once per game ability.
Yeah. It should just be D3 mortal wounds if it's once per game. The only problem with once per game per unit is you run into the Lumineth problem where it's like, have they used their ability? And then you got to like keep track of it. And it's easy to lose track of it. I like things where it's more like even if it was like once per game per ability unless X, and then you can do it again under these said conditions or something like that. But yeah, I hear you for sure.
Yeah, so those are like a couple things I'd like to see changed about ogres. I don't know if they necessarily will, but
everyone's agreeing with you in the chat, by the way. There's like, it's so dumb. Yeah. A lot of ogre players.
That's kind of the problem with ogres right now, is that it has so many small points of failure. Like hitting on 4s and wounding on 2s, I understand that concession, right? Yep. It's like once you break through the barrier of to hit, congratulations, you're wounding on 2s. It's not so bad. It's not the same problem that orcs have, where they're 4s and 3s most like across the board.
Also Skaven, I just want to point that out.
Also Skaven.
Yeah.
But the issue is that so many things in ogres are like layered conditions. So if you think about like pulverizing hailstorm as a prayer, for instance,
right?
You know, you need a 4 to get it off. You need an 8+ to get like the spicy version, but it's 2-up D3 mortal wounds in a bubble. And there's been so many times where I've either rolled a 1 to cast the prayer and it just fails. But if I do succeed that, then I go to like, okay, I've got these 2 units that I want to target, or maybe it's even just 1 unit that I particularly wanted to target and deal damage to, and I just roll a 1 on a d3 and it does nothing. It's like, what did I save all these ritual points up for, right?
I had that
And
same
it's
thing. Yeah.
yeah, or like trampling charge. Like, why can it do nothing ever? Like, and then there's just too many things
Sins of the past, my friend. Sins of the past.
But yeah, there's just too many layered conditions and too many things that can fail, that it makes like all of these cool plans that you formulate fall over in the unlikely scenario that, you know, you just don't get what you want in a given turn. And over the course of a 5-game GT, that actually becomes quite likely that that's going to happen. 5 games, 5 turns each, 25 turns. One of them is going to be terrible, and it's just going to cost you the game because you're relying on most of the things going off. So, yeah.
It's funny because like a lot of those things are like, a lot of these changes really are pretty small, but I think they will make a huge difference, especially in the hands of a stronger player. I mean, the whole Noblar thing doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know that we'll see a huge change. Like, these feel like, your suggestions feel minor enough that I think that they work perfectly fine. But like, some of these things might wait for the resculpt. I'm afraid some stuff, you know, but
yeah, I could definitely see that. The crazy thing is that I think if you were to take the original point value of gluttons that everyone was complaining about at the start of the edition and brought it into the edition now, it actually wouldn't be a problem army. Like, you'd still see spam, which is never good.
Yeah, that's true.
It wouldn't be as bad as people thought.
It's true. It's one of those things where it's like everyone reacts to it. And like the same thing happened with FEC in 2nd edition. People were like they could do 36 mortal wounds. It's like, yeah, if like literally you get like a spell off, an ability off, you have to use this, and then you roll 6 6s on 6 dice, then yes, then that's possible. But it's just like, but it never freaking happens, man. Like, the most I've ever gotten was 12, and that's with like, you know, a bunch of stuff going my way. So like, it's kind of a problem a little bit of the community. Like, that's why I'm never like I've had a really rough time against your Slaves to Darkness, you know what I mean? And like a few different other armies, Stormcast and whatnot. But like we gotta, like, as a community, I think definitely wait for things to settle a bit more when it comes to dealing with certain problem armies. And that's why you get like these over nerfs that happen. Gits last edition, Night Haunt this edition, and probably soon, I think you're right, soon to be probably Slaves to Darkness. But yeah, I mean, I think we're all guilty of it to a certain degree, because like sometimes things just feel super unfair. And then it's also a matter of like an experience, you know what I mean? Where you know, you feelings get involved and whatever. So I don't know. Yeah. And I guess like I'm also not someone who's like, who cares about winning, you know? I just mostly, I want to play well and I want to have fun, and winning isn't necessary for me to do either one of those things. But you know, so like, I can understand, like, if you're spending a bunch of money to go to a tournament, then you're going to be much more emotionally involved and you're going to want some of these changes a lot sooner. So I'm speaking from a, you know, somewhat place of privilege where I'm just not worried about some of these things, but you know, yeah, I you know, anyway, whatever. Are you done with your ogres? Because I cannot refute anything that you just said, and I think it was all really well thought out anyway.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm done with them. We can move on to orcs.
Orcs, man, this is another one that I think is like, I think they're in a pretty good spot.
I think Iron Jaws is in a pretty good spot.
Yes. Okay. Good point. I'm only thinking about Iron Jaws, even though I have a bunch of painted Cruel Boys. All I really want to play right now is Iron Jaws because they are so fun and the models are new and they're cool. I think overall, like, I still think there's a couple of things that they can maybe change. Mostly about big pigs and a couple of little things here and there. But yeah, overall, like, Iron Jaws are in a much better spot than freaking, what do you call them? Cruel Boys.
Yeah. I played, I played Iron Jaws at a GT like a couple weeks ago. Alex was kind enough to lend me his army. And I felt a similar way about playing them as I did playing my ogres in third. And not exactly the same, but it was still like the same vibe where it's like, cool, I have this big army with like a whole bunch of different tools.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting. And there's a lot
Right.
of things that you can do with it. And I could see with a lot of practice, I could get that up to be like a consistent 4-1 and sometimes 5-0 army.
Yeah.
Like that was my opinion on it. Cruel Boys, no.
We both
Like
shook our head at the same time.
Yeah.
No. No
Cruel
freaking
Boys,
way. I'm not even looking at them right now.
They need rules changes and war scroll changes.
Yep.
They're not in a good spot.
They're like, it's crazy because like they were the quintessential, like stereotypical in the starter set army that is like not super well thought out and is not very good in third edition. And in fourth edition, they wish they were in third edition. Like, it's crazy. I don't know what they do, though. Like, I have no idea what they do. Okay, should they give back, what are they called? The crossbow guys. Man-skewer bolt boys? Should they give bolt boys back mortals on 6s?
No. God, no.
No?
I don't think anything that shoots should be projecting mortal wounds across the table.
Except the warp lightning cannon.
Sure.
And I'm serious about that though. I'm deadly serious about it. It should keep its mortal wounds, and it's currently crap and no one takes it. So like, it's therefore fine. I think. Okay, but then what do you do? Like, what do you do with this freaking army?
I think it's a lot of small changes, or not a lot of like it's a lot of changes. Like you need like a surgeon to go in and like fix the army. Essentially, I think it's just fundamentally a little bit broken right now.
Right. In a bad way. Like
in a bad way.
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't played against them enough, and I haven't played as them at all. So I don't know.
It's sad too because it's like
yeah,
it needs to change. And honestly, like you said, a lot of little changes. I think scrap it. I think they need like a. You remember how like at the end of third edition, Ironjaw's got like an index that was like a new Ironjaw's army. I think they need that for Cruel Boys. Like just start from scratch. Nothing should. Alex says nothing should shoot mortals across the table. Looks at Croak. Yeah, I mean, technically, what I think he meant was in the shooting phase, but you might not be wrong there either. Carson to Ironjaw's confirmed. I hope so.
I don't know. Maybe. Yeah.
Can Rob get them painted? Probably not.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Would he love to have an Ironjaw's painted army? Yes. Yes, he would.
Yeah. I know, Alex, you were joking about that, but there's a fundamental difference between applying mortal wounds at range in the hero phase and applying it in the shooting phase. Just because you can reposition to get in range in the shooting phase, which is something that your opponent can't prevent, right? Whereas in the hero phase, it's like, okay, I know that if I stay this far away, even accounting for redeploys, you can't touch me, kind of thing. Like that's something you can always do. Whereas
and it is a spell you have to get off.
Yeah, but it's
yeah. I mean,
+2 or +3 to cast is pretty dang likely. Stark says, Carson, what army should I play next? You should play Cruel Boys. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, like there's a certain symmetry there, Stark, where you're picking the other army that's in the starter set for AOS 3.
Yeah, you should pick an army that isn't top of the meta. I've never seen you play a bad win rate army.
He says, I want to play Cruel Boys.
Do it. Do it.
I triple dog dare you, Stark. Thanks again for coming on the podcast or before.
Yeah. Yeah.
We do love you. Yeah. Like, what will you play, Stark? Let us know. I think inquiring minds want to know this. Yeah. Okay, but like, can we go back to Ironjaws for a second here? Because like you didn't like you were kind of you didn't want to bury the lead, but like I think the more because Cruel Boys need so much that it's almost uninteresting to even talk about them. You know what I mean? Like we're not going to even like Maybe they do sweeping changes in this upcoming balance update. I don't think so, and I can't imagine it'll be enough, whatever it is. But then I might have said that before about FEC, so who knows? But but they need so much that like they're even hard to talk about. What would you change about Iron Jaws?
What would it change about Iron Jaws?
Yeah, I want you to play them, Carson. So I need to know.
Gorgruntas could use some help for sure.
Yep.
Like they got the help, their mounts moving to 4s, but it's like that's what it should always been.
Yeah.
I think they can use a points adjustment in addition, which is one of the rare times where I think you could do both. Rules and points change. Well, I guess the rules change happened in the previous FAQ.
Right.
So I think that's one thing that could be changed. Like
what would you cavalry change?
Just points.
Also
cheaper.
You mean just on the Gorgruntas?
Yeah.
I think you could change the Mogruntas too a little bit for points.
Sure. Sorry. I mean, like I was literally just talking about the one unit as like an example of what could change. There's other things that could change for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, big pigs could get a little bit of help. They're pretty good though.
No, not bad.
I would like to see. I mean, this is just a selfish thing because every time I rolled it at the tournament, it failed every time. Which is the Maw Crush's like ability to do like the swooping fly or whatever. Like even a Stonehorn just does it.
Like, it's crazy. And it's on a bigger base, a way bigger base, by the way. And like, even like, let's say he just gets to do it. There's a good chance that he rolls like a 2 or a 3 or something like that. And it's like basically useless anyway. So rolling a 2 up to then maybe do nothing is again, crazy. Yeah. Totally agreed with you. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Even if they made it so that he has to land in combat again. If it was guaranteed, sure.
Right.
That's fine.
Like, we have to overcome certain things being on a 160 millimeter base. Like, they're borderline even playable. You know what I mean? It's not like a night base where they're super long, and so you can kind of shoot the gap sometimes. Like, those things are just a gosh darn nightmare to play. Yeah. RNG.
But overall, I think it's like light touches. I don't think the army needs a lot. Like the manifestation lore is incredible.
Yeah,
the faction terrain piece is incredible.
It's awesome.
The prayer lore is really good. The spell lore is but that's not going to change.
Right.
A lot of like the base foot troops are really good. Like our boys and brutes, both really great. There's an argument to be made for ragers and rekkas. Like, sure, you could run either of them. I'm trying to think of like what's left behind in the book, and I think it's just Gorgruntas and then some of the big pigs. Like specifically the hero, like Azri is saying, is not great. But like the Hacken crew is not bad.
They're not bad. Yeah. I might change the points like slightly on them. They're all unique, and like I do like that you're kind of encouraged to take a variety of them, so you're getting a variety of rampages and different things. I agree with Alex too that the War Chanter should be on a 3+ save. I think that would, because he's a big beefy priest, and and he's not just handing out plus damage anymore. It's a prayer.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, he's a 4+ save, so it's not a huge change.
Not a huge change, but like it is and it isn't. Like when you're talking about like that few of wounds, like it, but I mean, but I'm not going to die on that hill for sure. I'd rather see the changes to Gorgruntas and stuff that you mentioned, but yeah. Yes. And I agree with Azri. I think we're saying it about a bunch of armies though, Azri. Like it's not just Iron Jaws that are going to suffer when the Field Sergeant goes away, but we have no idea what they're planning for the next GHB. There might be some pretty sweeping changes to infantry. A lot of stuff has anti-infantry right now too, so it's like already a little sketch, but yeah. Cool. I'm glad that you tore into Iron Jaws a little more. I found that very interesting. There's only one army left, and it's good because we are approaching our end time here. Sons of Behemat.
Yeah, Sons of Behemat is another one of those armies that I haven't had a huge amount of experience playing against or as. From my understanding, they're mostly fine. They're
interesting.
Yeah.
I thought they were an army that was just popular when they were okay, just because it's fun to just take a bunch of big models and move them around the table.
Yeah. No, they certainly can apply damage quite well, especially to those like low surface area armies. Like if you put a war stomper into Chosen or something like that, it can actually be pretty deadly. But I think, yeah, I truly don't know enough about this army to like really critique it or know what it's going to change. And it's also a really hard army to do like points changes, just because you have 4 models in the army max, right? Or I guess you have more if you have the little guys, but like, I don't know, what more do you change, right?
I don't know. Yeah, I totally agree with you. They're another army that like I think will get an update when they get a book, because all they need to do to update the army is just give them a new multi-part small giant kit, and now the army's just like totally different, and then those old models get exercised back into the old world. But
yeah, like I'd be surprised if we saw anything more than like a 10-point change on something for Sons of Behemoth.
It's also kind of hard to change them with points, because it's like you're bringing 4 bigs, so like they want to make it so that you can't bring 4 of like something that's busted. So if it's like 510 points even, then you just can't do that. You can bring 3 of them, but you can't bring 4 of them, right? Yeah, they're like, I feel like they're kind of like knights in 40k, where they're an army that you have to be careful with, because they're another one where it's just like, if they're anywhere close to busted, that it's just too frustrating. You know what I mean? Because you just got like this one model that's a quarter of your army, and it's like a bunch of wounds and yeah. So, but I think like they seem like I think they're in a good spot. I don't know. I don't know. I haven't played them in 4th edition. You know what I mean? Like I've looked at their rules and stuff like that, because I had a Giants army that I sold not too long ago to Kenrick. So yeah. Number of SOB lists. It's always funny when I read that like that. Did okay last week. Almost all of them had some sort of regiment of renown. That's interesting. That's kind of almost a shame, where they're relying on, I'm assuming Gloomspite Gits, but one list had Kragnos. That's cool. Yeah, and the Gits regiment of renown. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, that's quite the mixed list, huh? It's like half of it's not even Sons of Behemoth. It's like Kragnos, the destruction god, and then some Gits and a few giants. At least it's interesting, I guess. But ooh, Ludivicus says suns will climb when slaves to darkness falls. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because right now, like, I can see them being like really hard kept by any like super even a glass cannon army can just go in there, and if they can take them out, then you're just taking out so much utility, space, and everything else from them. Yeah, that's a good call. They might soar. Yeah. Huh. What do you think? I mean, you're the Slaves of Darkness player.
Yeah, I could see that. I think conceptually I see that. Yeah, I don't exactly know, to be honest. Like it's tough to say.
It is pretty hard to I mean, like, and you were already saying that you were foreseeing that like some armies will go up, like Seraphon. It does make sense that would be one of the armies. Giants with Kragnos. What's that?
Exactly what you're reading right now. Yeah.
Will always look like they're taking their dog for a walk. That's messed up. But he's not
like
wrong.
3 responsible dog owners walking their big.
Yeah.
Come on, buddy.
As long as they're picking up his poo, you know? Yeah.
They're not. Cruel boys are still here.
That's Is that what the swamp is just made out of?
Yeah.
It's just a big urinal whatever trough for Kragnos. I love Kragnos so much. He's the ultimate Timmy piece. One of the best decisions they ever made. But the giant comet is not wrong. He's basically a giant, like, wolfhound or German Shepherd or something like that, depending on how he's painted. Yeah, you know what's funny though is like you don't like I remember in second edition in particular, giants were just like this boogeyman at a certain point, and I just don't really hear anyone talking about giants right now, and I don't. Maybe it is because they're in just a really good spot, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think when they're doing fine, they're like giant stands are just happy, right? They're
Yeah.
like, cool. I'm not being punished and I'm not being like over rewarded. So they're just chilling. Right?
Yeah. I mean, it like, can you think of a more quintessential Timmy army than giants? Like they fit every paradigm in there. Yeah. So that makes sense. And like, yeah, they should just be like this fun army to get into where you're just taking your toys and having a laugh. High DPS meta. That's true. That might be part of it too. And like, you know, like Ludivicus said, we might see them soar a bit when slaves go in the can. Yeah. But I also think what Carson said was true, where it's like a lot of them are just like chill guys that just like to play a fun army. They're not like a toolbox army. So like you're just, you know what I mean? So if you're not attracting the spikes and you're not attracting, they're never going to be like a Johnny army as much. Like, you know, like how many different ways are there to build these giants total? It's just so limited. So either I don't think they're ever going to be in that psychographic profile of either the other thing of anything other than a Timmy. So yeah, maybe they're just doing really good right now. But yeah, thing is with Gargants is that they're always fun to play. Take them to a GT, an easy 3-2, chug some beers and have fun. That's kind of what I was saying, right? And maybe you said that before I actually said it on the stream because of the delay and whatnot. But yeah, excellent. Well, we finished we got through everything. I'm pretty happy with getting through everything, to be honest. You know, will our predictions be right? Probably not. Every time you think GW is going to zig, they zag. But yeah, I'm excited for it. Like we're always excited for it, but yeah. What do you think, Carson? How well do you think we did tonight, or how well did you do?
I think we did pretty well. Like we didn't say anything too crazy, and to be honest, I don't know if we said anything like. Sometimes when you don't say anything super wild or hot takey, it makes you wonder if like it was worth saying for the purposes of the algorithm. But like, it's nice to just have a chat with people in the chat, seeing how our opinions landed and stuff. And it seemed like mostly we're pretty much in agreement. So
yeah,
I don't know.
I will be curious to see where the comments is. The comments is usually a much more, Moss Isley kind of place. A lot hotter takes and whatnot. Like, the thing is, too, is like, we're not that kind of channel. We don't lean into the hate bait or the, whatever the antonym of that would be. We genuinely like, what are you typing in there? Anyone coming to Dallas? Oh, top 3 armies post Battlescroll. Carson says Seraphon. I don't know why he's typing this and not saying this. He's typing Seraphon. It's okay.
Sometimes when you're on like a deep, not rant, but like you're getting something out, I'm like, I don't want to interrupt him. I'm just going to one of the chat.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I don't mind being interrupted. I certainly do it.
But it seems like Azri and I are on the exact same page. Seraphon, Khorne, and Nurgle, I think, are my predictions for will be the top 3.
Right.
Purely because Seraphon's being restrained by Slaves to Darkness right now. Khorne was like discovered late.
Right.
And so I don't think they're going to be able to change it in time.
Right.
And Nurgle was also limited by Slaves to Darkness, the high DPS output. So
totally. I think that's a great call. And I do think that they will do something about FEC. Yeah. I think you guys nailed it. That's going to be miserable, says Azri. Is he wrong? I don't think he's wrong. Like, Khorne's already a little miserable, to be honest. And like, it's kind of just that same problem of, like people don't enjoy like not being able to kill stuff. It's kind of why people are already complaining about Stormcast and Slaves to Darkness. So if we kind of go into that, yeah, it might be. There's some very high skill expression armies like Cities and Fire Slayers that are probably up there as well, but won't have meta representation to move the meters. Very well said. Yeah, that's true. What's the Khorne tech, if I may ask? It's a little too.
Problem is there isn't tech. It's just spamming mortals, I think.
But then there is like, in terms of playing them, there certainly is tech. There's like a lot of tech with Murder Lust and different things like that. And
Redeploy Murder Lust, auto run Murder Lust. There you go.
It's so annoying.
And
it's
then
so annoying. I hate it so much. But there's also, there is some other interesting tech pieces. Like Andy's running this triple Bloodthirster list. My God, like that thing slaps so hard. I had 6 Rat Ogres with a 5-up ward, all out defense, and one Bloodthirster almost killed them twice over. It was crazy. I think it was one Bloodthirster. I don't know. It was all a blur. And he was hitting on 2s and wounding on 2s. It was crazy. It's so reliable. Yeah, he had 3 of them running around. And like one's giving 3d6 to charge, and the other one's giving like all 3 Bloodthirsters, I think, +1 to hit or something crazy. And like there's just so much there. Yeah. But there's a lot to it for sure. It's not. Yeah. Sorry, you're just explaining that in the chat. But anyway, what did you guys think in the comments section? And let us know. Are we way off the mark? Like I'm usually I'm fine with hearing that I'm way off the mark. Sometimes it's true, sometimes it's not. Same with Carson. Carson, knows a lot more about the meta than I do right now, for sure. But we've been wrong, and sometimes we're right. And then sometimes we're told we're wrong, and sometimes we're right. And then sometimes we're told we're right, and then we're wrong. And like you never know where it's going to land. And I think we should all just be calm, take a deep breath, wait for the meta to settle before you really get your pitchforks out, and just kind of enjoy a new meta that's going to be here soon. Probably a little over a week. We're going to have another show between here and then, and I don't know what we're doing next week, but they gave us nothing this week, everyone. They gave us nothing. And so it's better and more interesting to get our predictions out a week early anyway. Yeah, we are planning a battle report fairly soon, but we're still figuring stuff out and lining up an opponent. So yeah. Thanks so much to everyone for hanging out. Your comments were very valuable. A lot of very great information and funny jokes in the chat as usual. I appreciate you guys. Thanks to Carson for joining me as usual every week, making the time, even though he's working 2 jobs right now. So we appreciate you. And yeah, we'll see. As usual, we'll see you guys next week. Hope you got something painted. Bye-bye. Bye.